Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Would everybody please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Starting us off tonight, we are excited to have the Maple Point Middle School Choir join us this evening. They are under the direction of Paul Tosti, and they are going to sing the national anthem and then a holiday song. So if everybody would please stand.
We've been waiting all year for this night, when the snow is glistening on the trees outside and all the stockings are hung by the fireside, waiting for Santa to arrive.
And all the love will show, 'cause everybody knows it's Christmas time, and all the kids will see the gifts under the tree. It's the best time of year for the family.
It's a wonderful feeling, feel the love in the room from the floor to the ceiling. It's that time of year, Christmas time is here, and with the blessings from above, God sends you his love, and everything's okay. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Ooh, yeah.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Doom, doom, dia, doom, 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 doom.
Bells are ringing, it's time to scream and shout. And everybody's playing 'cause school's out, celebrating the special times we share. Happiness 'cause love is in the air.
And all the love will show, 'cause everybody knows it's Christmas time, and all the kids will see the gifts under the tree. It's the best time of year for the family.
It's a wonderful feeling, feel the love in the room from the floor to the ceiling. It's that time of year, Christmas time is here, and with the blessings from above, God sends you his love, and everything's okay. Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, happy holidays. No matter what not your holiday. It's a time to celebrate. Put your worries aside and open up your mind. See the world right by your side. It's Christmas time. Oh, happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
It's a wonderful feeling. Feel the love in the room from the floor to the ceiling. It's that time of year. Christmas time is here. And with the blessings from above, God sends you his love. And everything's okay. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Ooh, 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 yeah. Happy holidays. Come on. Sing it to me, y'all. Happy holidays.
How about one more round of applause for the Maple Point Middle School Choir and their director, Paul Toski. Thanks so much. That's a great way to start a meeting. I know that a lot of people were only here for that, so I'm going to pause for a couple minutes and let people clear out if they want to leave. Feel free.
Township Solicitor, Mr. Esposito, Township Engineer, Mr. Candera, Chief of Police, Joseph Bardarelli, Director of Building and Zoning, Jim Ennis, Director of Parks and Recreation, Paul Capera, Director of Finance, Laura Huckelbridge, Director of Public Works, Eric Gardemeyer.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Our next Board of Supervisors meeting will be our reorganization meeting, and that's Monday, January 6, 2025 at 7 p.m. So this is our last meeting of 2024. So that brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. And we used a sign-in sheet tonight. So the first person for public comment on non-agenda items is James. I apologize, James, I can't read your last name. If you could please just come up to the podium, state your name and your address for us.
Last name's Belser. Hi, James Belser, 662 Valley View Road. Couple questions about 659 Langhorne Yardley Road, which was the ubiquitous Curtis Smith property. It has been listed for sheriff's sale in February. There are a bunch of items that we had gotten through the court that could have continued to be taken down: the fence, the shed, the driveway expansion part out the front, numerous other steps that could be taken. I guess my question is, what steps are going to be taken? And if no steps are taken, the property will be sold. What happens at that point? Are they grandfathered in? And, okay.
The violations are still subject to, whoever buys it are still subject to the violations. The Director of Zoning and myself have discussed this. We will be in contact with anybody that possibly buys it at sheriff's sale and discuss with them the violations and work with them to let them know what needs to be done.
All right, because I just didn't want to go through this process one more time.
Nope. Yeah, we will work with them because those items could possibly come into compliance, but they need to prove it to us and get them inspected. It might not be, and then we'll deal with that.
The driveway one won't come into compliance.
No, that will not.
The
But
fence,
the fence can.
it
and
violates on the
other
one,
building can.
it still violates on the one side. It's not, setbacks not right.
Well, it needs to be, they need to provide a survey of where
Right.
it goes. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. All the surveys, the distances are right. Then about the liens on the property, what happened to the liens? Will they be gone with sheriff's sale or will they be carried forth on the property?
A little bit of both. There are municipal liens that we have that have priority that will get paid off in sheriff's sale, provided that there's no other taxes that would trump the township's lien. So if there are IRS liens,
He has
they
an IRS
trump.
lien.
And I know, and I don't exactly know the exact amount.
Yeah.
Our liens for some of the work that we did do trump the actual mortgage, but the IRS would have priority over the township's liens. I don't know exactly how much it is. I don't know how much the property is going to sell for, so I can't answer those.
So they won't carry through to whoever purchased the property?
No, they stay with Mr. Smith, though, as a personal judgment against him.
Good luck, yeah.
I realize that, but I'm just, it's how it is.
I guess that's it. So we're in a holding pattern, but you will talk with whoever buys the property about coming into compliance?
Yes, and my thought is, more likely than not, the bank will buy it back at sheriff's sale and then probably sell it privately. That's usually what happens when there's that many, but we don't know until that comes up.
I will tell you that there are people coming almost daily.
I realize that,
looking
but there's
and
so
taking
many
pictures.
judgments that might not
Yeah,
get
that's what I mean.
cleared with the sheriff's sale, so.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised how many people, when it popped up, all of a sudden have come to look for that property. All right, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Esposito. Next individual for public comment on non-agenda items is Fran Grouse. Please come to the podium and state your name and address.
Fran Grouse, 360 Green Ridge Drive in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. It's been brought to my attention by a lot of the neighborhood people that the Planning Commission and the zoning meetings are not online. And Jim Janka had approached you and asked you if that could be done. So I just have a little statement here. I was wondering, is it true that the zoning board is appointed by the Board of Supervisors? Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Okay. So the Board of Supervisors are the ones that appoint them with our tax dollars, and we also pay for the solicitor. Is that all of that correct?
The zoning hearing board solicitor?
Is there a solicitor?
The zoning hearing board has their own solicitor,
Yes, okay. But that is paid for with our tax dollars, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So with our tax dollars also pay for the audio and video equipment that's located in the same room where the Board of Supervisors hold their meetings. So for the zoning board to claim that they don't want to record the meetings for the taxpayers, I believe that that's wrong. So you can certainly, as the board chairman, make this happen along with the rest of the Board of Supervisors. So we're just hoping that for all of the citizens and taxpayers, that there would be more transparency, and that there's so much going on at the community right now with the building, zoning changes, and the planning commissioner. Everybody would like to be a part of it, and not everybody can get out to these meetings. A lot of people work and they have small children. So it would really be very, very advantageous to the community if those meetings could be videoed or, brought for everyone to be able to see. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Dave Cahill. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Dave Cahill, 462 Cynthia, Pendel, former member of the Pendel Fire Company. Still trying to get some answers about the loan documents for Tower 8. I have some pictures. Can I bring them up?
If you want to hand them to the township manager. Yes, sir.
So in front of you, you have a picture of Tower 8 where it's marked Tower 8, and underneath of Tower 8, it says Middletown Township. Mike, you keep telling me that the township doesn't have anything to do with the Pendle Fire Company. So if that's true, why is their name on their truck?
Middletown Township didn't put the name on the truck. I've never told you that Middletown has nothing to do with the Pendle Fire Company. What I've told you is that they are a separate legal body from Middletown Township, and I don't have the loan documents or information about their loans that you're asking for.
You and the manager keep telling me that Middletown Township doesn't have anything to do with the Pendle Fire Company. I've been coming here since the August meeting.
I will state on the record publicly again, I am not telling you we have nothing to do with the Pendle Fire Company. They provide fire services to some of the residents in Middletown Township, and we assist with their funding. So we absolutely have something to do with the Pendle Fire Company. We are not the Pendle Fire Company, and this is not our tower. That was not our loan, and I don't have their loan documents that you're looking for. I'm not saying this isn't a legitimate request. I'm telling you that request needs to be made to the Pendle Fire Company, not Middletown Township.
I love that word that the lady that came up in front of me used. The word was transparency. Mike, I'm not buying any of what you're saying. Okay? So the fire company can't operate without your money. They don't get your $100,000, they're done.
But they get funding from a variety of sources besides
They get funding from the borough, Pendle Borough.
Right, their funding doesn't just
It's
come
not
from
enough.
Middletown Township.
The money they get from Pendle Borough isn't enough to operate.
I
You're
mean-
giving them operating expense money. That's how they operate.
All right, I understand you're looking for loan documents. I don't have those loan documents, and I don't know how else to answer your question. You've asked me 4 meetings in a row, and I've given you the same answer every time. I don't have
Yeah,
them.
it's the same answer. So again, you supplied the money for the tower.
No, I didn't.
The township supplied the money for the tower, and then they didn't have enough and they took a loan. Okay, all I want to know is what they showed as income on the loan documents. That's transparency.
You have to ask Pendle Fire Company. That's who you should be asking.
So, again, you know that I made them an offer they can't refuse. I offered them a $500 donation for a copy of the loan documents. This is the second month, and I haven't heard anything.
I can't speak for
All
the
they
Pendle
have
Fire
to do is
Company.
show me a piece of paper. That's it. They get $500.
You have to ask them. I don't know
Listen,
why you're
had
asking me.
I had a conversation with another member of a fire company, one of the local fire companies. They told me that they'd give me my documents in 2 minutes and take my $500. Why isn't Pendle?
Ask Pendle.
No.
Ask Pendle Fire Company. I
Okay.
don't know the answer.
So you don't see anything wrong with any of this scenario,
With what scenario?
them not showing the loan documents.
I'm not going to speak for them, and I'm not going to give an opinion on what they should or should not do. We are a separate legal body from the Pendle Fire Company. You're going to have to ask them these
So
questions.
did you hire Darrell Martin as your first full-time firefighter for the township out of the fire marshal's office?
Hired Darrell Martin, yes.
Is he the first full-time firefighter for Middletown?
No.
No.
No? But he is a firefighter, right? Could anybody tell me why Darrell was removed as chief from at the Pendle Fire Company some years ago? Wasn't part
We're
of the
not
interview?
going to discuss
Yeah,
any
we're not
personnel
going to discuss
matters.
personnel. All right, we're going to move on to the next item. This is the same questions you've asked meeting after
I
meeting.
told you they were going to get tougher, Mike.
They're not tougher. They're the
They're
same
gonna get
questions you
tougher.
ask every month. So the next person on the list for public comment on non-agenda items is Cecilia Ridge. Cecilia Ridge. Take your time. Hi, just please state your name and address into the microphone for the record.
My name is Cecilia Ridge. I live at 2644 Trenton Road, Levittown. I'm here because I'm really disgusted with waste management. I have yard waste that I have to call every week for them to come pick up my yard waste. It usually takes a day or two to get the yard waste picked up. This week it was picked up after my phone call, and I call every week. I call Waste Management, waste 40 minutes of my life with them. I am not calling them no more. I do my job. I fill my tanks, I put them out there, and they're to pick them up. I get this call and they tell me they have iPads in there, So when they go to the address, they click it, and they know they picked it up. So my trash should be picked up. This week, when my trash wasn't picked up, I go, Mikhail's got 8 cans out there. The next guy got 10 cans out there on Trenton Road. And I don't understand. You raise our money, we get less service, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being built upon, built upon, built upon. I've lived here all my life. There's no space anymore. You got to stop building. We don't need more people. We don't need more cars. You can't widen any road to have traffic flow. You know, you build these warehouses that are empty. There's empty warehouses, and what are you doing? I don't understand. And I'm frustrated, and that's what I need to tell you. And I'm telling you, I will not call. My cans will stay out there for days. I have hundreds of trucks blow by my house. If I did this with my job and did not pick up your children to go to school, I would be in trouble. You know, these cans and trash need to be picked up. I have an elderly man who has a heart condition who now has to carry this big-ass can 100 feet up to Trenton Road to get the trash out. I don't understand what you were thinking. Everybody doesn't live in a cookie cutter, Highland Park, Swan Point address. Some people have long, massive driveways. Have a nice day.
Okay, so that's everybody for public comment on non-agenda items. We will move into consent agenda items, and they are as follows. Consideration of authorizing payment of the December 16th, 2024 bills list in the amount of $2,582,569.36. B, consideration of approving the November 18, 2024 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. C, consideration of change order number 1 for the 2024 Community Development Block Grant Curb Ramp Replacement Program for a negative $28,703.44 for adjustment of final quantities. Consideration of payment certificate number 1 for the 2024 CDBG Curb Ramp Replacement Program in the amount of $147,626.73 for completed work per the contract items to date. Consideration of financial security release number 7 for the Oxford Valley Mall multifamily redevelopment S/LD number 20-68 in the amount of $186,429.50 for verified completed work per the land development escrow and financial security agreements. Consideration of financial security release number 22 for McHale's Kitchen and Bath land development number 2462 Trenton Road S/LD number 22-1 in the amount of $103,663.50 for verified completed work per the land development escrow and financial security agreements. Consideration of financial security release number 1 final for 1600 East Old Lincoln Highway Warehouse South Site S/LD number 22-5 in the amount of $6,787,394.63 for verified fully completed site work per the land development escrow and financial security agreements. Consideration of resolution numbers 24-25RA through 24-25RE bank resolutions. Consideration of memorandum of understanding with the volunteer fire companies for application to FEMA assistance to firefighters grant, and consideration of approval of the stipulations of settlement for the tax assessment appeals for the properties at Oxford Valley Mall. Is there a motion on the consent agenda items?
I'll make a motion to accept consent agenda items.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public?
Hey, Mike, can we make a non-agenda comment?
Sorry. Sorry, I didn't hear who said that.
There's 2 of us here.
What did you say? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Each of us make a non-agenda comment.
Yeah, let me finish the consent agenda items, and then I'll reopen public comment. Any public questions or comments on the consent agenda items? It's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 4-0. All right, we're going to reopen public comment on non-agenda items. Please come up to the microphone, state your name and address.
Sorry, I didn't know the protocol. I think I signed the wrong list. My name is John Mack. I live at 281 Stanford Place in Newtown. I'm a Middletown Township Supervisor. And I came here because Carla Jones, I believe, is in the audience. She had come to Newtown Township asking if Middletown and Newtown could cooperate in improving the pedestrian and traffic safety at the Summit Square intersection with the bypass. And I wanted to see how we can move forward on that kind of cooperation. I know some people from the traffic committee. We don't have a traffic committee, but we have a planning commission, and we want to bring this before our planning commission and get the discussion going to see if we can do something, some of the things that Ms. Jones recommended. And so I just wanted to notify Middletown that I'm interested in working with Middletown to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Mr. Vallow, do you want to comment on what we've done to date on this issue? Because I know it is something that the Citizens Traffic Commission has explored.
Yeah, absolutely. The Traffic Commission, I believe back in July, did discuss this issue. Ms. Jones participated in that meeting and shared her concerns. So for folks who are familiar, the intersection of Summit Trace Road and Newtown Bypass is actually in Newtown Township. The official border is approximately the Doublewoods Road, which is right next to it. But because of that, and because that is a PennDOT road of Newtown Bypass, really, this is Newtown Township's prerogative to take the lead. You know, Middletown is certainly, able to help with whatever kind of synergy or partnerships we can to help move that forward. But really, anything kind of south of Doublewoods is really where Middletown's participation would start.
So I guess the answer is if Newtown wants to take the lead, Mr. Mack, I mean, Middletown's certainly willing to cooperate and engage.
I can't speak for Newtown to say that they would take the lead. I just want to get the process started where we could communicate with our different commissions, committees, and so on, especially with the traffic, and see maybe if we can approach PennDOT and see what the heck they're trying to do with crosswalks on the bypass, which I think is pretty dangerous the way it is right now. And I know they're building a Wawa in Newtown where they're also having a crosswalk across 332. So there's a lot of concern about pedestrian safety and also about traffic exiting, I forget the name of the road, to make a right turn on the bypass over there. So I don't speak for the township.
I think as a general premise, obviously, improving pedestrian access is certainly something that's been a priority of this board generally. And obviously, we sort of share a mutual corridor there in Middletown and Newtown in the areas that you're just talking about. So we're certainly willing to keep talking and work together and see what we can accomplish.
Right, that's all I wanted to communicate. Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Evening. Christopher Nowakowski, Alberts Way in Langhorne. 2 months ago, I attended a meeting of the Middletown Republican Committee. I took the floor, and I called the committee out on the inclusion of one specific member, one who had previously been forced to resign, not only from her committee spot, but also as elected auditor of this township. I brought up this person's hate speech, or unhealthy obsession with our Jewish friends and neighbors, and other hate-filled social media posts. The committee leadership, they didn't seem particularly bothered. It was 2 years ago. It's in the past. Are there any new allegations? Our bylaws don't even allow for removal of members. Real profiles encourage these people. So what if it was suggested that the Jews carried out the September 11th attacks? So what if they said the Jews created the COVID vaccine specifically to reduce the Christian population? It was 2 years ago. Who cares? When I suggested perhaps the committee not only didn't care, but in fact maybe agreed with some of the referenced hateful rhetoric, that touched a nerve. Chairman Ray Chapman, also our elected tax collector, seemed rather perturbed and salty at that inference. Ray insisted the topic would be discussed at a super-secret clandestine meeting of the rather distinguished-sounding executive committee. Now, that was 2 months ago. And since, as far as I can tell, radio silence. Now, one could be forgiven for perhaps thinking at best that the Middletown Republican Committee simply do not care about this hateful rhetoric, or at worst, maybe they in fact agree with some of it. Who knows? That's what silence gets you, speculation. So I phoned Mr. Chapman recently, and I asked him for an update. He basically said things were being handled from up in Doylestown. So I made another call, And this time, I spoke with a gentleman named Phil Mironoff, member of the Bucks County Republican Committee. And from Phil, more of the same. It was 2 years ago. There's been an election since the hate speech was uncovered. I don't care if the hate speech was 2 weeks ago, or 2 months ago, or 2 years ago. It was unacceptable then, it's unacceptable now. And it will be unacceptable in this township as long as I live here. And I will be here at these monthly meetings every single month calling out these craven political cowards until someone summons up the character to do the right thing. So obviously I'm here to update the community. But I'd also like to give a special holiday shout out to members of the Middletown Republican Committee's leadership team. Chairman Ray Chapman, also our tax collector, Executive Chair Kathleen Seborowski, Gail Thibodeau, to each and every one of you for not having the character to call out hate speech, to back up your words with action, and to remove the stain of anti-Semitism and Jew hate from your committee once and for all. Mazel tov to all of you. I have nothing more to say.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Please state your name and address.
Christy Morris, and I'm at 211 South Clearview Avenue in Langhorne, and I am the person that he's talking about. And I'll give you a little history of what happened to me over the past few years. There was 2 things I reposted. I did not like them, I just reposted them. And for that, he went into a tirade. He started posting about me on Nextdoor in 2021 in the fall. And friends told me about it. They said, hey, what's going on? I said, I have no idea. And the next thing I know, he shows up at the township when I was being sworn in, actually afterwards, and goes on a complete tirade. I think you guys are used to it now. And my whole life changed. I came home, on the 4th was the sign-in. On the 5th, I came back from an auditor's meeting, and I think it was on the 6th, there was TV crews and cameras in my driveway. Now, I'm gonna ask you, do you think that's a normal response? And who decides what's hate speech? I was in tears for days. And I talked to Pat Mallon. I apologized to Pat Mallon. I cried my eyes out. I said, what am I going to do? I was so concerned about the MRC. I said, look, I'll quit. I'll get away from everything, and maybe this will go away. Because I did not mean for anybody to get hurt. And that's what I did. And then, in September of this year, I get more email from him. Now, I will tell you, I have gone to the police. I am feeling very harassed, and I'm not going to take it anymore. So I'm sorry you guys have to be in the middle of it, but I'm not going to sit back and wait, because people like this are dangerous.
Good evening, board. Sorry I signed the wrong list, and I'm losing my voice, so hopefully you can hear me. Gail Thibodeau, 312 Paxson Lane, Langhorne. One correction, 2 things I'd like to say about what Mr. Nowakowski said. He cannot be trusted. He came to our meeting, and he pretended to be someone else, his neighbor. And there's a lot of people that can vouch for that. And he just called me a leader, a member of the leadership team, and I'm not. I'm just a committee person. But anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about tonight. So I'd like to ask if the board could look into, and this was not my idea, it was actually one of the former boards had an idea about installing digital signs over by Oxford Valley Mall entrance and over by Steyer's to alert drivers that there's a freight train blocking the train track, because most people, I would venture to say that most of us have spent half of our lifetime sitting there waiting for the signals to go up, right? And Mike, you live near me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you could look into that, I know it's a PennDOT road, Woodburn, I understand that, but can't we do something so that at least people know to go take a different route? Because we do know how to get around it if we're, given notice. Thank you.
Just one quick point. I appreciate Ms. Morris's words, but the fact that she apologized to the chair of the Middletown Republican Committee.
All right. Please stop screaming from the audience. Sir, finish your comment, and then we're going to move on from this topic.
How about an apology to our Jewish friends and neighbors and the Jewish community in Middletown? Those are the people who the posts were targeted to, not the Middletown Republican Committee. You apologize to him because you got caught. The object of the apology should be to the people who were smeared and targeted simply for being who they were, and that's that.
Any other public comment on non-agenda items?
Hi, I'm Carla Jones. Nice to meet all of you again. I want to first thank, 225 Oak Ridge Drive in Summit. I want to first thank Nick Valla, who has sat with me, who I submitted a PowerPoint presentation to from the bypass. And so I'm grateful for your time, and thank you for that. Make sure people know that when people do a good job, you need to be acknowledged. I want this township to do more than tell Newtown Township to take the lead. I want you to be a partner in the process. That's why I wrote to all of you today. You got my email, I hope. Maybe you haven't read it yet, but you will. I can send you all an email today, and I copied. You probably got it, Nick. You probably read it too, haven't you? Yes, I knew Nick would do that. I don't know if the audience knows this, but you have this 20-year plan, and that 20-year plan has sidewalk accessibility throughout Langhorne. And there's the new development that's going in, and I was on the original team that fought that to try to save the farm to make it, have it be preserved. And so which I'm very grateful to the builders, they've created these access pathways to the park. The problem is there's a sidewalk on 413 that has at the front end and the back end, they have stop signs, meaning you really shouldn't be going beyond the sidewalks. Well, people are walking on the sidewalk, in case you haven't noticed. They're doing that. So I was asking that this 20-year plan that you have on page 86 of the plan, to put that into place sooner. And that would be a sidewalk that would come from the development, go around Summit Trace Road, and connect to the bypass, which is what Mr. Mack was. I once again thank him for coming tonight. I really appreciate it very much. And then connect so people are not walking the streets. As I say in my letter to you, that I can imagine that as soon as people realize there's this wonderful pathway through the development, they're going to bring their bicycles and their strollers and their wagons, and they're going to want to go to the park through there. And they're not going to have an access point to it. They're going to have to walk in the streets, but there's nothing safe, there's no safe crosswalks. So I'm asking you to be a partner in this, not just asking someone to take the lead, but be a partner. I'm going to be involved. You may have heard about blue zones. I hope that you've heard about blue zones. Blue zones about making the community walkable. So I know they're doing some research over in Newtown. Can Middletown Township get involved with this as well? I know that you're bright people. I know some of you personally. So I would I just want to see involvement so that we're not doing a 20-year plan to get sidewalks to a development that this township has approved, and so we can get people safely to the park. I mean, I know all this makes sense to you. I talked to Frank Ferry's office. They were very open to working with, helping to complete grants. I sent you a couple links with the letter today to, perhaps give you some ideas of, reaching out to other stakeholders in the area. But I want to see, in my mind, the township approved this development, okay, which I understand that, how that all works. And the builder has been willing to make it very, from the road, you should not be able to see the houses. And they put the pathways in there. I'm just asking you to finish the job. in terms of making it connect to the areas that lead up to it and then connecting to the bypass. Right now, it's the only crosswalk that PennDOT has authorized. I don't know if people realize that. You know, they came in, they put the accessible ramps in, they put the buttons for the lights, and that's where they're saying, can people, you know, they're saying, come people, cross over. Well, these pathways in this development are also saying, come on over people, come through the development and go to the Core Creek Park. So I want to see involvement is what I want to see from all of you. So thank you.
Nick, can you explain the multimodal plan and how we prioritize those, the way they put in the sidewalks? Could you briefly describe that?
Sure. So just to reiterate, your question was about the multimodal improvement plan and prioritizing. So for anybody who may not be familiar, the plan that was being referenced is the township's multimodal plan. Was completed about a year ago. It's a comprehensive walkability, bikeability, pedestrian improvement plan. And as we discussed when we presented it about a year ago, this is really just kind of the blueprint of what walkability improvements might look like in Middletown in the long term. And the way that we chip away at making those happen is through, as developments are approved, and having developers make those part of their plans, and as well as grant opportunities, both things we heard tonight. And that is one area. There's a couple kind of in the Summit Trace neighborhood that we're looking at, primarily for the forefront, and the prioritization of those would come about as there's individual grant opportunities, which I expect some of those for walkability to come up in the springtime, and we can talk about prioritizing those at that time.
All right, any other public comment on non-agenda items? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I live on Woodstream and Summit Trace. Just a quick question. I was at the meeting where the waste management representative was here, and they were saying that the bulk trash pickup, you'd be able to call and schedule an appointment for your once a month 2-item bulk trash pickup when it was convenient for you. And then when the postcards went out, it just said it's the 3rd trash day of the month. Did that fall through, or is that still a thing that's coming?
I think there's both, right?
Yeah, so the once a month that comes with the service that everybody's getting is the 3rd full week. It's kind of blocked out on that mailer if you received it. Residents will have the ability, beginning January 1st, the mobile interface, the mobile app that we've been speaking about a little bit, you'll have the ability in real time to request those. But Waste Management has shared with us that that would be an additional cost for anybody who wants to they're outside of their normal bulk day. It would be kind of a pay for service for that.
So when they were here, they were saying it would be your one free pickup, but now it's a pay for service, or you just have to do it the one time a month on the 3rd trash day of the month.
Sure. We can certainly clarify that with them, but my understanding is it's anything outside of your regular bulk day would be separate and additional.
We could have had it weekly for $20 a year. Can we renegotiate that in 5 years?
I hope the cost of trash removal goes down in 5 years and we get better rates than what we got in response to our public bids this year. I hear
Okay,
you.
thank you.
All right, any more public comment on non-agenda items?
Good evening,
Address,
Board.
please.
Lance Eggers, 98 Queen Lily. First, I wanted to follow up with Ms. Cools about the discussion we had at the last meeting about PICO on the New Falls Road corridor, kind of going scorched earth. And
We're going to let Nick keep answering the questions.
All right. Yes, as we shared at that meeting, we have since had a meeting with the PICO representative, and they're looking at doing some line replacements. They didn't give us exact detail of what they're planning to do, but it's primarily just trimming trees back, and then if there's a need for either pole or line replacements, but we can certainly follow up with them for some more specific details.
okay, so I would invite any member from the board to drive down New Falls Road, and if you think that's trimming trees back,
I agree with you for what it's worth.
That's not what it occurred.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Secondly, went to the most recent planning commission in regards to the Wood School trying to finagle their way around our zoning requirements. And what I couldn't help but notice when their attorney was giving a presentation was him bringing up the comprehensive plan from the planning commission. If any of you guys are familiar with from August of 2020. I actually went back and looked at it because I had no idea that some of the things he was reading was part of our building plan. Was any of the members of the board not on the board in August of 2020?
I was not.
Okay, so the only person that wasn't. So what I did is I went back and looked at a lot of the sections, specifically I think pages like 30 through 35 that he was referencing. And since I've been coming to meetings, I don't know if I've heard any member of this community championing mixed use apartment complexes or any of such thing. But yet, when I look at the plan set forth for Middletown Township, it almost looks like Simon Group wrote those pages. So my question would be is there a possibility to amend that so that we don't have future attorneys like the Woods School's attorney using our own plan in an attempt to get what they want, which is clearly not what the community wants in Middletown Township?
I don't think that at least as long as I've been here, I don't recall any attorney ever citing to the comprehensive plan as a basis for seeking approval for land development. I've certainly never made a decision on that basis. I mean,
well, they did.
The development project comes on a project by project basis, and we have to make a decision based on our land development ordinance. That's how we decide everything.
Okay, I can tell you their attorney cited specific pages, read excerpts from
Yeah,
my plan.
I
So-
don't deny it. I believe you that it happened at the planning commission. I'm just saying at the board of supervisors, I don't believe that that's a basis on which we make decisions.
A comprehensive plan is usually updated every 10 years. When we updated it in 2020, it had been a very long time. There was a lot of public involvement. You know, the sentiment may have changed in the community since then. So a comprehensive plan is that. It's a plan. It's a guide document. It's reflective of that point in time. So it could potentially be changed in the future. Developers are going to point to it.
So we're
But
just gonna-
again, the board ultimately makes the decision. And as you pointed out, some of the people at the dais right now weren't on the board in 2020.
So essentially, we're just going to let it be and let developers use it as a mechanism.
I don't think developers use it as a mechanism. I mean, I understand you had one experience.
Mike, you're saying they're not literally, I'm telling you, then
Listen,
then
I
maybe
get
the
it. That
plan,
happened
maybe
one
the
time
planning
at the planning
commission.
commission. I'm just saying, at the board of supervisors, we're not making decisions on land development projects based on a comprehensive plan, which again is not a law. It's not an ordinance. It's a guide that was created by a committee with a ton of resident input about a 10-year plan for the township. It's a guideline. It's nothing else. So I'm not saying it won't ever get changed. I'm not saying it might not be ripe to be amended. I'm just saying I can assure you, I don't think anybody on this board is making decisions based on that plan. And if a lawyer were to rely on that as a basis for approval, I don't think that would be enough for us to make a decision. We have to make decisions based on our land development ordinance. That's what guides us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, any other public comment on non-agenda items before we move on? All right. Next item agenda is the conditional use hearing for Piazza Volkswagen.
Good evening. I'm Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Piazza Family Limited Partnership, and as you indicated, there is a advertised conditional use application in front of the board this evening so as to allow Piazza to expand its motor vehicle sales and service complex on Route 1, Woodburn Road, and 213 by an additional 1.5 acres to cover the vacant 20,000 square foot building at the corner of Lincoln Highway and Woodburn Road, which, as part of a future land development plan consideration, we'd like to expand and include that as part of a Volkswagen dealership. So I think the solicitor wants to add or offer some exhibits into the record before the conditional use is acted upon.
Yes, as Mr. Murphy mentioned, the relief requested is a conditional use approval from Ordinance Section 500-1502P to permit a motor vehicle sales establishment in the C Commercial Zoning District at the property located at 1974 East Lincoln Highway, Langhorne, PA 19047, tax map parcel number 22-048-005-001. What I would like to put into the record are the board exhibits. We'll label as Exhibit B1, the application for conditional use submitted by Piazza Family Partnership. Exhibit B2 is the notice of the hearing and proof of advertising. Exhibit B3 is the proof of mailing and proof of posting from the township. Exhibit B4 are the applicable provisions of the Township Zoning Ordinance, Section 500-3209C, the general requirements and standards applicable for all conditional uses in Middletown Township, and Section 500-1502P, motor vehicle sales establishments, conditional use in the C Commercial Zoning District. Exhibit B5 are the Planning Commission meeting minutes dated November 6, 2024, and Exhibit B6 is the conditional use site plan submitted by the applicant. If there's no objections to the board exhibits, I would submit them into evidence.
Certainly no objection to that. And on your screen is the plan which Jim just made reference to. It highlights in a heavy black line the area of the corner of Lincoln Highway, Woodburn Road. Up at the top is 213, but it's about 1.25 acres that incorporates that vacant 20,000 square foot building. We'd like to convert that into a Volkswagen dealership. The reason we're doing the conditional use is because the existing complex, which is 12.5 acres, already is the subject of a conditional use. This one piece has never been part of the conditional use process, so the recommendation of staff was to have a conditional use hearing to annex, if you will, this 1.25 acres to the already existing property that is the subject of multiple car dealerships, as I think most people know. So on the evening in November that we met with your planning commission, we all not only reviewed the conditional use, which was unanimously supported, but also a land development plan. The land development plan was the subject of some back and forth and some recently received review letters from the township consultants, and there was a recommendation from the Planning Commission about modification of access points on Lincoln Highway, Woodburn Road, and 213. We're not ready to proceed tonight on that aspect, so as part of the conditional use, we would defer any board consideration of the land development plan until we had other comment from Dominic and your traffic consultant about those recommendations. So tonight, the focus is only on the conditional use, annexing that 1.25 acres, and then we'll be back to you hopefully next month with the land development plans. I don't have anything else to add to the conditional use element. I think everyone acknowledges in the review letters that we've met all the requirements in your ordinance to qualify to expand the conditional use to include this previously uncovered parcel.
Yes, now I would agree with that comment. The board is welcome to ask Mr. Murphy any questions that they have on the property or the conditional use.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? This was unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission.
It has been, yes.
Do we have to close the record, Mr. Esposito?
If we can keep it open for any public comment on the...
Do I make a motion first?
No, we can make public comment first and then do a motion.
Any public comment on the conditional use for the parcel at Lincoln Highway and Woodburn Road, Volkswagen dealership?
Thank you for improving that corner.
If there's no public comment, then we can close the record and ask the board for a motion.
All right. The record's closed. I'll make a motion to grant approval of the conditional use to the applicant Piazza Family Limited Partnership as to the use allowing for a motor vehicle sales establishment in the C Commercial Zoning District for the property located at 1974 East Lincoln Highway, subject to the following conditions. The project shall be carried out and the use shall be conducted in a manner consistent with the application's testimony, evidence, and representations of the applicant and its representatives at this hearing. Receipt of all permits and approvals from any agencies having jurisdiction over same to the extent applicable. Applicant shall pay all township expenses related to the application to the extent not already paid. And the applicant shall comply with the rules, regulations, and ordinances of the township, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the United States government, and particularly with the Township Zoning Ordinance and Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance unless otherwise waived. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Great. Thank you. Good evening.
All right, what you've all been waiting for. Next on the agenda is a presentation by the Newtown Bucks Joint Municipal Authority. Making their way in, I guess just to set the table for this a little bit, I think some background is appropriate. First and foremost, this project, as currently conceived, is not going to be built in Middletown Township. And so that everybody understands right from the outset, we do not have a vote. The Middletown Township Board of Supervisors is not voting to approve or not approve this project. It's not being built in Middletown Township. And in fact, from what I understand from a procedural standpoint, it still has a long way to go, even in Newtown. It may have to go before their zoning hearing board and their planning commission, and then before their board of supervisors, ultimately before it would move forward. Why we are here tonight is we invited the authority to come to Middletown to present to us and our residents, because recognizing that this project is contemplated right along our border and potentially impacting our residents, we wanted to make sure that they came and answered our questions and addressed our concerns to our residents. And so that is what this is about tonight. This is, for all intents and purposes, an informational setting. I appreciate them graciously coming and sharing information with us tonight. After they have an opportunity to do their presentation, members of our Township Environmental Action Committee are here. I'd like to invite them to provide any questions, comments, or concerns that they have, and then we will open it up to members of the public. Obviously, we did have a sign-in sheet. A number of people have signed up to make public comments and ask questions. So that'll sort of be the process as we go through it. So thank you very much for coming, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jerry Schenkman. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Newtown Bucks County Joint Municipal Authority, more lovingly known as the Newtown Sewer Authority. I'm just doing some introductions today. I'll let you know who they are right now, and then I'll have a few words to sort of set the stage from our perspective. Standing behind me is Warren Gormley. He is the Special Projects Manager for the authority. In the back there is Mike Mendito. He's the manager for the overall authority. And the lovely woman standing here, pardon me, is Terry Funk. She's our engineer with Gannett Fleming. So they'll all have an opportunity to speak if they want to, but we'll see how far we go. I don't know how much time we have, but we'll try not to waste any of it. First of all, as the vice chair, you should know that I'm a former supervisor in Newtown Township. I'm a current solicitor in Newtown Township. So I'm somewhat familiar with the process here. I also used to work in Langhorne. I was the president of the Peace Center for 9 years back in the 90s. So I have some familiarity with what's going on here as well. Most important thing that you should understand that as representatives of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors on the Joint Municipal Authority, the Newtown Sewer Authority, we have a fiduciary obligation to protect our residents. We take it very seriously. At the same time, we're also have an obligation to protect the Newtown Sewer Authority and to take the correct actions. So when we first considered the possibility of building a wastewater treatment plant, it was about 2 years ago when the county authority attempted to sell their sewer assets to Aqua Pennsylvania for $1.1 billion. We were very concerned about that, as were most other municipalities who are part of the system. Fortunately, it has not taken place, but that does not remove all the problems that the county authority has with its own maintenance and the fact that it's all tied into the Philadelphia waterworks, where all the treatment is actually taking place. All those costs from the city and from the county will be increasing. We also know that the amount of work that they have to do is very extensive and very expensive. So we started talking about that, doing that, and at this point, we decided to move forward very slowly. Basically, the only thing we have done, other than having our engineers do some preliminary work and what kind of technology is appropriate, she'll give you more about that in a few minutes, is that we wanted to be sure that this was what was best in the best interest of our people. We're very concerned about public health, and we're very concerned about the economic impact of not doing anything. We're concerned that if nothing is done, we will be at the hands of the county authority, which is problematic, and at the hands of the Philadelphia Water Works, which is even more problematic. So we're doing a very extensive investigation, doing due diligence to the greatest extent that we can. I live in Newtown. I've been there for 35 years. I wouldn't be even considering this if I didn't think it was important to at least look into the possibilities. And that's where we stand today. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Gormley to give you some more historical background.
Thank you, Jerry. We're here tonight to do the presentation. Basically, I'll try to make this quick. I just wanted to give you a little history of the authority before I turn this over to Teresa. The Newtown Authority was incorporated back in the 60s for the borough and the township. Initially, we served roughly 1,200 customers in the borough, and currently we approximately about 9,000 customers. Our system is about 103 miles of sewer mains. We have 5 pump stations. The other thing is we are attached to the regional system, which we have our own collection system, but we flow to Bucks County and they convey to Philadelphia. So in other words, we are collection, Philadelphia is conveyance, and Philadelphia is treatment. Everything flows through the Totem Road pump station and on to PWD. The other thing is, we understand the Middletown Township, parts of the township are owned by Bucks County Water and Sewer, and the other part is owned by the Lower Bucks Municipal Authority, with you also having multiple connections to Bucks's Interceptor. And I'm going to turn this over to Terry.
Thank you, everybody. Excuse me. Again, my name is Terry Funk. I'm with Gannett Fleming, and I am the engineer for the authority. And I want to just give you a little background about what we've done the last couple years, where we are now, and what the next steps are. As Warren said, the Newtown Sewer Authority, this is a map of the Newtown Sewer Authority. Just to give you some perspective, the colors aren't going to make any sense to anyone who isn't a sewer engineer. They're drainage basins, so you can ignore them. But the Neshaminy Interceptor that Warren mentioned, it's not going to shine on there, is it? Runs along the left side of the screen there. Next to the pink, blue, and yellow is the Neshaminy Interceptor. And I'm going to show you a map of that too, because it does impact Middletown. The Neshaminy Interceptor is the major conveyance that collects flow from 13 municipalities in Bucks County. Newtown is at the top of the interceptor, and it flows all the way down through the county and ends at the Totem Road pump station in Bristol Township on the border of the city of Philadelphia. Middletown has multiple connections. Hard to see on this map, but this map lists all the connections, and I believe Middletowns are listed about the third down. So the purpose of these is just to give you some idea. The property, as we move on, just before we get away from the map, the property that I'm gonna, hopefully, I can talk loud, but this isn't gonna work. The property that the authority purchased.
Can you hold on a second? Can we just get you a microphone, because folks at home that are watching on Zoom can't hear you.
Thank you. The property, the authority owned a wastewater treatment plant from 1964 until 1988, and that was located right here off Freedom Drive, and that plant was decommissioned in 1988 because at that time it made sense. Economically, it made sense to join the regional system. Since then, the regional system has had some challenges, and the Neshaminy Interceptor in 2019, or probably before 2019, but an agreement was enacted in 2019 because the Neshaminy Interceptor was determined to be hydraulically overloaded. And that's an engineering term that means if everybody wants to flush their toilet and we get a storm and everybody takes a shower, there's not enough room in the pipe for everybody's flow. The result of that is a difficult process. If someone with a failing septic system needs a public sewer connection, if a development comes to any community along the interceptor, it is very challenging to get connections approved for good reason, right? We all want to be stewards of the environment, and we don't want to make new connections to hydraulically overloaded facilities. The property, this property, just so you know, in 2013, for cost reasons, the authority did evaluate building a treatment plant on the same property where they owned one before. It was determined to not make sense. The property wasn't big enough. The impacts to residents and the area was, it was determined to not be appropriate. That property was about 8.5 acres. The property currently being evaluated is over here, basically right next to the Wawa that's being constructed right now, to give you some geography. Okay, I'm just in case. It's just nice, a map. It's hard for people to read. The property currently being proposed is a 17-acre property, twice the size of the previous property. So, I guess I could go back to here now, right? So why is the authority pursuing a new treatment plant now? Mr. Schenkman gave some insight into this. In 2022, Aqua made a $1.1 billion offer to purchase the system owned by Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. Rate impacts, I'm sure many people in the room have read and heard about privatization of water and sewer utilities. The impact on rates is significant. There's a municipality in Lower Bucks County that sold privately. Their rates since have increased 250%. Aqua has facilities all over the state, all over the country, but in the state alone, cost of improvements to any Aqua-owned facility, even if it weren't benefiting customers in the area, would be allocated to all customers. And finally, when the purchase negotiations broke down, Bucks County went on record to say that their system needed millions of dollars in capital improvements, and if they were to retain the system, capital investment and associated rate increases would be necessary. The authority, the Newtown Authority, has already experienced one of those rate increases, and it was communicated to them that that was one of 3 that were planned. I alluded to the Neshaminy Interceptor Connection Management Plan. That relates to the hydraulic overload I explained. It limits, it delays connections to the system. DEP has oversight of that plan, and it has been recently updated. There used to be what I'll call a bucket of available connections, and I'm sure the supervisors here, I think Middletown has to go through the same process. There used to be a bucket of available connections allocated to each township that sent water or sent flow to the Neshaminy Interceptor, and that bucket was just drastically reduced and almost eliminated altogether. So again, this leads to a lack of control from Bucks County and Philadelphia Water Department. Regulations are only going to get more stringent. Costs for those regulations have to be paid for somehow. And the facilities, the Neshaminy Interceptor, the Northeast Water Pollution Control Plant, which is the treatment plant where this flow is conveyed, are aging. They're in need of a lot of improvement, and those costs will all come back to the residents of Bucks County and in Newtown. Newtown has a long history of efficiently managing its operating costs. I'll show a little bit about that on the next slide. And as I said, a land available that was more suitable for construction of a wastewater treatment plant was identified and acquired by the authority. So this is just to give you a little background on the analysis that we did to get through this preliminary planning period. We looked at 20 years of historic costs from Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority, and the flow that was sent from Newtown to Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. The blue line is the costs. Those dots are the total annual cost to Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority from 2001 to 2019. The red line is the flow sent from Newtown to Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. The average annual cost was 6.2% from that time, and the flow did not increase at all. In 2001, it cost $1.72 per 1,000 gallons of sewage that is conveyed to Bucks. It is now, I think, $4.29, 150% increase. So we did a rate comparison of staying with Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority versus construction of a new treatment plant. The green line is cost for construction of the new treatment plant, and the purple line is the cost to remain with Bucks based on that 6.2% projection. What have we done? Where are we now? We did meet with DEP, the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, who has oversight on the approval process for any wastewater facilities that are constructed or modified in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We've requested and received what's called preliminary discharge limits. I know there are some people in the audience that'll come up and speak. The discharge limits are the level of various chemicals that would be in the wastewater when it was discharged to a creek. Those levels that we received to discharge at 2 locations, either Court Creek, adjacent to the treatment plant property, or Neshaminy Creek, adjacent to where the former treatment plant property was. I can tell you that the discharge limits that we received from PADEP are what is considered enhanced nutrient removal, which is the level of treatment that the Chesapeake Bay sees, which is one of the most highly protected waterways on the East Coast. We did complete a sampling plan. We collected influent wastewater characteristics at 2 locations in the township. We analyzed flow to size, get an idea of what the plant size would be, and we evaluated 3 different treatment alternatives. The treatment alternative that has kind of risen to the top from a consideration standpoint is called an aqua narrata treatment process. It's state-of-the-art technology, and it's been used in Europe for over 20 years, and there are approximately 20 installations in the United States, with many others pre-chosen as a treatment for proposed facilities. 2 members of the board and 2 staff, Mike and Warren, as well as 4 members of Gannett Fleming, attended a project seminar and treatment plant tour in Walcott, Kansas City. And this plant in Kansas City is similar size and using this technology. So we wanted to, because it's so new in the United States, we wanted to get a firsthand tour and you know, the things that everybody's concerned about: see it, smell it, hear it, and see how it operates. Yes, I do have several pictures coming up here. So this is the plant, and from the left to the right is what I'll call the beginning of the plant, called the headworks. Then you work through the treatment system. So the higher roof on the right, work through the treatment system. The lower roof on the left is the disinfection and filtering facilities, and then the discharge is further down on the left. I know what a lot of people are going to say when we hear wastewater treatment plant. All we think about is odor. Again, it's a reason that 8 of us went to Walcott, Kansas City, to stand there and see it and smell it ourselves. And I can tell you that inside that tall building, there was an odor, and that's why it was inside. And if you stood outside the door of that building, you couldn't smell anything. All of the odor was inside that building. This is a picture. This is a picture of the outside outside facilities. Again, several people standing on top of the facilities, and I can tell you that, again, there were no odors at all outside. How was the weather? It was very nice. It was in October.
All right, can we let them get through the presentation, and then we'll have time for questions, comments at the end. Thank you.
This is two of the board members with the lead operator who was gracious enough to give us a tour of the plant, and she was really proud of her facility. I do, obviously, the impacts and concerns is probably the most important slide to the people in this room. I do have a map on the next slide with distances to parcels in Middletown Township. Environmental concerns are obviously big. There's an environmental impact assessment process that the state oversees. At this point, we will have to assess that property. PNDI stands for Pennsylvania Natural Diversity Inventory, and that's a process where you can put any parcel in the state into a database, and the state knows any potential environmental impacts, and that kind of guides the environmental assessment process and what's necessary. I think by nature, authority board members they're appointed by boards of supervisors or borough council. By nature, they're stewards of the environment. They wouldn't serve voluntarily on a sewer authority board without being so. The board's committed to meeting or exceeding any regulatory standard that comes along with the plant. Removing capacity from the Neshaminy Interceptor will actually improve the environment. It will reduce overloads. Climate change significantly impacts your ability to take wet weather flow out of a system. You can do a lot of work and spend a lot of money to try and take flow out of a system. And frankly, the storms and the impact is almost impossible to overcome in some cases. And believe it or not, there have been some wastewater treatment plants for one reason or another that have wanted to take themselves offline, and regulators have not allowed them to do that because they do keep flow in streams during times of drought. And I'm sure many people have walked around our parks and adjacent to our streams in recent months and seen the impacts of the recent drought. Wastewater treatment plants and their discharge actually improve those conditions. Odor and sound is obviously going to be the biggest concern of the people in the room. As I said, there were no odors in the outdoor areas. Any odor area was undercover. There was a slight humming of machinery that would be undetectable from the edge of the property based on the size of the property. And the property right now has a large natural buffer that we would propose to maintain as much of and enhance the buffer wherever needed. I think a lot of people pointed out, which is true, the treatment plant we visited was in Kansas, and it looked like Kansas. Yes, it was open. And the architecture wasn't super attractive. You can do a lot of things with architecture, and the authority is committed to architecture that complements the surrounding area. And as we move through the zoning and land development process, we'll provide renderings as part of that. So this is a little bit hard to see, but the red outline is the proposed property. The closest residential property is around 700 feet, and that is parcel line to parcel line. The next slide, when I show you, will show the required zoning setbacks at the sideline. So 700 feet from the property line, we anticipate it will be well over 1,000 feet to any wastewater facility to a property line. And this is the very preliminary site plan that came out of the design. As you can see, the zoning district is OR in Newtown Township, requires 150-foot setbacks in the front and rear and 120-foot setbacks on the sides. The lower right-hand corner of that parcel we anticipate will be largely wetlands, so we think the buffer on that side will be larger because we will not construct within a wetland area. We wouldn't be able to do that. So again, if you look at that 120-foot setback and then see the layout from there, we're probably looking at another 500 feet in from the side property line. The next steps for the authority, they have engaged a financial advisor to develop short and long-term alternatives for financing the project. And from an engineering standpoint, we're going to move forward with what's called 30% design. As Mr. Schenkman said, the evaluation we did was very preliminary. We don't have any survey of the property. We haven't done any environmental. We haven't done any geotechnical investigations. So this 30% design includes a zoning evaluation. That process and approval includes preliminary land development for the wastewater treatment plant and the pump station, and obviously environmental impacts and any requirements. And then, as I said, we did a preliminary evaluation of 3 treatment processes, and one did rise to the top, but we do need to do a final evaluation of the process and equipment alternatives. And obviously, continued communication and coordination with our regulators. I did include 2 websites up there. One has the authority's website, which includes a little longer narrative on the project and how the board reached the decision to get where they are today. And then there are some FAQs on the website also. There's a link directly to some frequently asked questions on the property. So that's all we have for you. So I'll turn it over to your Environmental Action Committee.
Thank you. Do we have representation from the EAC here that would like to be heard? Ms. LaRoe?
I'm here with Kevin and Andy.
Excellent.
Kevin's our water treatment expert, so I'm going to defer to him and his expertise.
Great.
Okay, fine. My name is Kevin Deeney. I'm with the EAC, as you well know. We heard about this by just reading the newspaper. So we didn't know that this, we heard about this by reading the newspaper. We didn't know that this was coming. So put together some comments on it, really based upon experience. And to give you just a little thumbnail of what that experience is, I spent 46 years evaluating wastewater treatment plants. So I've been all over the country, throughout Europe, Africa, Canada, whatever. Part of that was troubleshooting treatment plants for EPA, and as a private consultant, I would advise cities and towns how to run them, how to build them, train operators how to run them, train engineers how to design them. And then I retired, and this is what I do now. When we heard about this, I penned some things for Middletown to consider. This is not a Middletown project that I'm well aware of that. But this proposed treatment plant is going to discharge, as I understand it, into Cork Creek. And Cork Creek is the watershed we share with Newtown and others. So that water will, the effluent from that treatment process will flow downstream into Cork Creek and into Lake Luxembourg. And from there, out of the lake, back into the stream before it mingles then with the Neshaminy. So the pathway of that effluent will pass through one of the primary recreational resources that's totally within the township, and that is Lake Luxembourg. And we've been watching Lake Luxembourg for quite a while as part of the EAC. We're interested from a water quality standpoint, from an environmental standpoint, obviously. So we're well aware that there has been a designation from the state and federal government that every segment of Cork Creek streams are designated as impaired. So they're impaired by sediment and they're impaired by the presence of nutrients, in particular nitrogen and phosphorus that's in the water. And that nitrogen and phosphorus accumulates then in the lake and it promotes the growth of algae. And that process precipitated the state and federal governments to impose a restoration plan for the watershed. And Middletown has been living with that plan as part of your MS4 program. You have been spending money for quite some time to naturalize basins in the watershed to remove nitrogen and phosphorus that would otherwise flow into the lake. And that is an attempt to restore the quality of the lake. Now, in a sanitary wastewater project, the sanitary wastewater treatment plant has to remove some nitrogen and phosphorus, but necessarily not all of it. It really depends on what the state and federal governments impose as part of their regulatory requirement, of which you have no control over. But you will be judged on whether or not that restoration plan on the lake is successful by what happens in the lake. And more nutrients coming into the lake make it very difficult now to deal with them in the lake. Once they're away from the treatment plant, they're yours, and they will be passing through the lake. So everything really depends on the nature and the details of the treatment plant that they're proposing. Now, there are site issues, there are all kinds of technical issues involved with siting and designing a treatment plant, and we don't know what those details are yet. But the typical discharge criteria for a treatment plant of this kind will bring more nutrients in. And we're already under a program to remove them. So essentially, it will offset all of our efforts to try and restore the lake to conditions that are defined by the state and federal government right now. What they will be defined in the future, I don't know. But Middletown is incurring cost to try and restore the quality of the water. The last estimate I saw as part of the stormwater evaluation was we're proposing to spend up to $1 million a year for the next 5 years. That's part of the MS4 program. You have a dog in this hunt, and you are going to be incurring some costs, but you don't have any control. And that's where this give and take has to be worked out. I had recommended in a letter to you to watch this project closely. The regulators will respond to your comments to some degree, but they will set their standards based upon technical criteria. So you'll have to know what the technical issues are that are being proposed for this treatment plant. Now, we've been told that there's enhanced nutrient removal criteria, but we don't know what they are numerically yet. So that's one of the first questions to ask. What are the standards that have been proposed by the state? And with that knowledge, we can calculate what the impact will be on the lake. If you have any questions about what I've brought forward, we have not taken a position in opposition to this. What we've recommended is that you understand it before you develop your comments to the regulatory folks that are going to be involved with this. They will listen to you, and if you stick to the science, you have a compelling argument, because any nutrients that are added as a result of this treatment process will set back our efforts of restoring our watershed, essentially.
And I think we are heeding your advice, which is exactly what we're starting right now, which is the process of understanding. And I'm really glad you're on our EAC and are here to help advise us. So thank you for being here and providing your comments.
Hi, good evening. I'm Andy McAloon. I'm also a member of the Middletown EAC. I'd like to address a flooding problem. Last year, you being Middletown Township, about $90,000 repairing flood damage on Silver Lake Road caused by Core Creek overflowing. Tonight, later on, you will be considering a proposal to raise additional money through more taxes from Middletown with a stormwater control program. In that program, I believe there's a line item for $100,000 on more additional repairs on Silver Lake Road. My understanding is this plant will dump about 2.5 million gallons per day of effluent into Core Creek right above where you did your construction. This 2.5 million gallons of additional water can only cause further flooding. It doesn't sound like a very good idea for Middletown Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could we actually have the authority speak to that? So how do you make sure that you're not contributing to more of the flooding that's occurring with Core Creek?
So one of the slides, and I tend to try and not get real technical in these presentations because I think it frustrates people who don't understand. So one of the slides where I indicated that we requested effluent limits from DEP indicated that we requested effluent limits from 2 different locations. One of them is Core Creek, adjacent to the treatment plant property. The other is Neshaminy Creek, which is much further downstream where Kevin, I'm sorry, I should probably call you Mr., I don't remember your last name, spoke to. So that's part of the process. We would have to evaluate whether it is feasible to discharge into Core Creek or whether the discharge from the treatment plant needs to be conveyed downstream and discharged into Neshaminy Creek. So that would be part of the process. Environmental impacts, nutrient removal, and certainly flooding would have to be evaluated. I'm not familiar with it. Like I said, we've only done preliminary, but that would certainly be part of the process, and it's part of the reason that we requested discharge limits from 2 different locations, because the treatment plant, there was previously a treatment plant discharged in Neshaminy Creek, and there has not been one in the new location. Okay? Does that answer your question? Thanks.
All right, thank you to the EAC for your participation and your thoughtful comments. We appreciate it, and we'll be leaning on you more and more as we continue working through this process. At this point, I will open it up to public comment. So let me say this. There was a bunch of people that we had a sign-in sheet. A number of people signed up and either wrote no next to their name or opposed next to their name. If you just wanted to be on record as opposing it, noted, and you don't have to come up and speak if you don't want to. But we'll go through the list. I'll call each name. We got a number of emails of folks who either couldn't make it or didn't want to speak publicly. Suffice it to say, every one of them, as far as I can read them, are all voicing opposition to the proposal. So with that, I will go with the first person on the list, who is Gary Sandemeyer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Gary Sundermeyer at 622 White Swan Way in the Swan Point development. My wife, Roseanne, and I have been in Swan Point for 40 years, raised our 4 kids there, and are raising our 4 grandchildren in wonderful Middletown Township, and I want to thank you all for your service. It's a tough job. I'm speaking tonight representing many of my neighbors in Swan Point, many of which are here. We asked folks to come out, and they came out because we're extremely concerned with the potential impacts of this sewer plant. As a statement of some credibility, I am a 45-year environmental professional. I spent 30 years with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, 10 years as the agency's chief of staff over all operations and 3,500 employees. And for 3 years, I was an assistant commissioner over the environmental permitting programs for the entire state of New Jersey. I have been to very many, thank you, very many wastewater treatment plants, and I've never been to one that doesn't stink. The real question is how often they stink, how badly they stink, and how widely the dispersion of the odors goes. The folks from the authority that spoke about visiting the Kansas plant and saying they didn't smell anything, I don't question that. A day means nothing, absolutely nothing. These things run 24/7, 365, and this thing is planned to be in our backyard for the next 30 to 40 years. it's going to stink along the way. And I can tell you, as an environmental professional, that odors are the most difficult thing to deal with. They're insidious, they're unpredictable, they come and they go. I'll just mention, a few of the dynamic factors that come in to odors, and wastewater treatment plants are highly sophisticated systems of machines. And the things that affected the head where the human waste is actually coming into the treatment plant is a point that often has terrible odors when there's too much flow into the system. An analogy was given of everybody taking a shower, or when the Eagles make the Super Bowl, if everybody's at a Super Bowl party and flush the toilet at the same time, it's going to be too much flow. When there's not enough flow, the systems have problems. The dispersion is a function of meteorology, the wind speed, the wind direction, the heat, the humidity, the dog days of July and August when we have a temperature inversion and the air sits there very heavy is going to affect odors. Sludge. At the end of the treatment process, you have sludge. The fancy term is biosolids. Sludge really stink terribly. And we're going to have trucks removing sludge going up and down our roadways on a regular basis. Planned and unplanned maintenance. Have any of us here ever had a machine that didn't break? These are highly sophisticated machines, pumps and meters. They're going to have malfunctions that affects odors. And finally, age. Again, early operations of a treatment plant, you're going to have less. A car analogy. When we buy a car, it runs really well. But then as time goes by, you're going to have more and more difficulties, more and more upsets, more and more potential for odors. I'd like to switch gears to the site location. In a recent authority meeting, I listened to the audio, and the question was asked, are there going to be any off-site impacts? And the answer was, well, really no impact to residences. There's 1 or 2 houses and a Wawa. We find this stunningly, stunningly inaccurate. And we went as simply through Google Earth to look at zones of a half mile from the site, a mile from the site, 1.5 miles from the site, and here are the numbers. And we can all go home and calculate this ourselves. We're not making this up. This is reality. There are 46 homes and about 150 people within the core area of a half mile, the ground zero. There are nearly 2,000 homes and 5,000 people within a mile. We have 5,000 homes and 12,000 people within 1.5 miles. There are dozens, if not over 100, small businesses between Luxembourg Corporate Center, Newtown Commons, Newtown Tech Center, right in very close proximity to this site. Sensitive receptors, I have to tell you, never in my career have I seen a municipality approve a food store, which is a Wawa, and 600 feet away propose putting a sewer plant. The Community Crossing Church is about 1,000 feet away. The NAC, 1,500 feet away, with a beautiful outdoor swim club. Imagine having a tough week at work, you take your kids, you go to the swim club, and what you're smelling on an inversion day in July is septic, it's sewage. Come on. 6 daycare centers and preschools are located within 1 mile. And one of these schools is for among our most vulnerable populations, children with autism, 900 feet away from the site, right across the bypass. Developments that are within the mile zone include Swan Point, Eagles Mere, Silver Lake, the villas at Shady Brook, the villas at Newtown, Headley Trace, Wiltshire Walk, and Walden Square. And that's not all of them, and that's about 1,400 homes just from those developments. We heard some discussion about effluent discharge. Great concern. You're going to have surface water discharge to Court Creek, the Chamonix Creek, impacts to Lake Luxembourg. Our EAC representative, who's truly an expert, he's been to wastewater treatment plants all across the world. They explained the sensitivity of Lake Luxembourg. Why would we ever be in a position of even discharging and adding phosphorus and nitrates to that sensitive environment? We're doing very sophisticated wetlands restorations now. This is very, very concerning. Core Creek Park itself. I mean, this is a jewel of Bucks County. And once again, the threat of a sewer plant to something that is so valuable to the outdoor recreation and quality of life of our area is of great concern. Loss of property value. Who wants to buy a home near a sewer plant? It's going to affect all of our property value. And we're going to try to get folks to help us assess that, but there's no question that's a great concern. Lastly, in terms of process, we have a lot of concern of what has transpired, and others have said this. The EAC said they heard of this project in a newspaper. You saw the maps of where it's sited, right on the edge of our town. And the old plant was also right on the edge of our town. We didn't have any notice of this. We learned of it as a community about 2 weeks ago. And we've been trying to mobilize. I think we did pretty well with the crowd that we have today. What is bothersome with process is that we keep hearing, and we heard tonight, that this is all preliminary. I don't think we agree that it is preliminary. And let me just cite a few things. The sewer authority or the town used police power, condemnation, to get control of the property. They spent, I believe, $12 million of ratepayer money to buy the land. The project is in preliminary engineering design, and don't be fooled by the term preliminary. You can't do design if you don't know what you're building. So they're modeling this thing after the Kansas treatment plant. I mean, I think that has to be, they have a footprint. They've hired a financial advisor. I think I've heard they've hired a public relations firm to work on the project. And they've contacted PADEP to get the discharge numbers that they need. And the real concern, and I would love to know if they're actually writing the permit applications now. Because I've seen this process many times in the past. Very, very limited information is available about this project, anywhere. So, in the dark, barreling down the tracks, even though you're saying it's preliminary, doing all the things I just mentioned. And then the next thing you know, a permit application pops out and goes to PADEP. Then that gets done, and the authority says it's beyond our control. It's before the state regulator. And I can tell you, because I managed all the state regulators in New Jersey, these folks are salt-of-the-earth reviewers, and all they're going to look at are the effluent standards, the emission standards. They're not doing any kind of a land use review. And at the end of their PADEP review, generally they'll issue a draft permit. And then they'll hold a hearing on a tentative decision to approve the project. So the question is, where's our voice? Anywhere in this process. And in closing, you know, most of us here have been in Middletown for 40 years, as I said, some longer. And we really had no notice. We've had no opportunity. We've had no voice on a critically important land use question of siting a sewer plant in the middle of 12,000 people, dozens and dozens of businesses in a very sensitive environmental area like Core Creek. So we are very concerned. And please, if there's anything that you can do to help, please help us. Help us stop this project. Thank you.
Do you want to respond to any of the questions or comments or concerns that were raised before we move on to the next public comment?
I mean, I don't.
Can I ask a basic question? Why here? Why this location?
Well, there really aren't parcels the size needed, frankly, to, and I want to, a couple things, and again, I don't like to get too technical. When we talk about we're talking about both properties being on the border of Middletown Township. It's a matter of topography. It's all elevation based. When you have to be close to the stream. Mr. Sotomayor certainly knows that, in order to construct and discharge a treatment plant. So that's really the reason. It's not because it's on the border of Middletown. And I guess the only other thing on a personal level that I want to go on record as saying, I live in Warrington. I'm not just an engineer. I'm a mom. I have 5 children, and I live not near one, not near 2, but near 3 wastewater treatment plants. 3. One of them is in Horsham. I live right up near the border of Warrington and Horsham. And in the last 2 years, a 46-home development was built directly next to the wastewater treatment plant. $1 million homes. You know how long it took to sell them? 6 months. 46 homes directly across from a wastewater treatment plant. I appreciate it. The boards here, honestly, we talk about, there has been no permit application. The 30% design does not include submission of a permit application to DEP, just so you know that. It includes, frankly, the environmental and site impacts are the biggest part of the 30% design. And so I don't think it's fair to say, we were at Newtown Township. Mr. Sotomayor was there. There were several people there. We were at Newtown Borough because we're part of a joint municipal authority. We're actually here well in advance of any formal application process because we want to be transparent and address issues and concerns. We do. And I guess I would just request, if Mr. Sotomayor was on the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for 30 years or more, I guarantee you he approved wastewater treatment plants with homes and businesses near them. So I think it's just not, I think it's a little disingenuous is all I'm saying. And I would just appreciate the same transparency that we're trying to give. I drove by, and you talk about timing, I worked for 10 years in New Britain. I drove within 400 feet of the Chalfont New Britain Sewage Authority treatment plant every single day, twice a day, for 10 years. I never smelled anything. So there is technology. There is technology, and Mr. Sotomayor spoke highly to the Headworks facility. The Headworks facility in Kansas is completely enclosed. Inside the building, it smells. It does. Yeah. I'm just trying to be honest about, we can't compare 60-year-old, 100-year-old treatment plants in cities to a brand new state-of-the-art treatment plant. That's all. I would just respectfully. Thank you. Excuse me? I'm sorry, what plant? I don't know what plant you're talking about. Oh. Yeah. I can't say, I don't know the plant. I'm sorry, I can't speak to it. There are. There are a lot of questions. That's why we're here this early in the process. We're not far along in the process. There really hasn't been.
It's kind of like a double line. If there's a lot of money that's getting put towards maintenance and repair, millions of dollars into all these facilities that got awards for being so design excellent, then that graph that you showed that said, oh, we're only going to see a modest increase for our constituents, and showed this ridiculous graph to 2058 of what it would look like if we stayed under Philadelphia. I just need to understand who's paying $8 million for the repairs. Or are you going to be like, what is it, Sager City in California? They had to issue a state of emergency because of their wastewater treatment plant, because of all the litigation and all the time it took for all of these things. If all that time takes, granted, that's Newtown's problem in terms of money and finances, but it's our problem with the health of those that have respiratory problems, that can't breathe very well. When that type of chemical in the air, when those water plants go down, we have to answer for that, not the taxpayer in Newtown. I'm more worried about the health impacts and the smell, to Mr. Sonnemeyer's point of land value and all that good stuff. So if you can speak volumes to how you maintain it and how that doesn't become costly to your constituents, why do what we're doing?
I can't speak to unknowns of the future. I can speak to, you can project maintenance concerns to the facilities where the waste is going now. There's SSOs, sewage system overflows, in the Neshaminy Interceptor right now that very negatively impact our environment. So these things are happening now in other areas. So I guess my point is, I think there's somewhere on the order of 16,000 wastewater treatment plants in the eastern, I'm not going to get it right, so I'm not going to say it. Are you going to find isolated incidents where things happen? Of course you are. It's like anything, right? There's no guarantees. But a state-of-the-art new treatment plant is not going to have the maintenance. The other thing from a regulatory standpoint, standards from a regulatory review require redundancy that was not required many years ago, requires generators that were not required. So that you have to be prepared for way more emergencies now than you ever had to. It's part of the regulatory oversight process.
What is the overall cost that Newtown thinks that this is going to cost to build and then to maintain on an annual basis?
$128 million.
120?
That was the 30-year life cycle cost analysis, which is very preliminary. That'll have to be, at every step, that would be refined.
And that all goes to Newtown customers?
That all, yes.
Yeah.
Well, ratepayers, yeah. Spread across the rate base of Newtown, yes.
And you only have 9,000 customers. Are you anticipating more customers? Like, are you going to bring in water and sewage from other areas now that you've built this?
There's no decision on anything like that as of now.
Has it been discussed?
Not really, no.
Okay. So 125 million preliminary for just the build, right? Not the annual maintenance?
No, that's a 30-year life cycle cost.
That's the 30-year
analysis.
cost,
Right.
okay,
Yes.
for 9,000 customers, okay. One of the things, too, that I'm worried about is the, what will be the impact on Middletown is that now Newtown is building their own facility. So while we have regionalized, we now don't have the ability, all of us didn't want that sell to Aqua. We wanted to keep it where it was. And now we're de-regionalizing, which means, the cost to maintain what's already there, the current infrastructure, will now be even more on those current members. So both of us will now have significant increases across the board, correct?
I can tell you that I would be prepared for big increases, whether Newtown's part of the system or not. All the information we have indicates that the Philadelphia Water Department has a hundreds of millions of dollar capital improvement plan. Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority has to spend tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on its infrastructure. Yes, that is going to have significant rate impacts that aren't going to vary too much whether 9,000 customers leave the regional system, I don't think.
One of the things that I know, myself as well as others that live in that upper area, we have private wells. Is there an impact that we should anticipate having a wastewater treatment facility that's going directly into the creeks that feed into our aquifers?
No. No, Mr. Sotomayor, Kevin, I apologize, I don't know I should have asked your last name. The discharge criteria, they have to be safe for, there's called TMDLs, total maximum daily loads. They're established for every waterway in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that basically sets what the total level of various contaminants can be to a creek. Those TMDLs are evaluated with any potential discharge into a surface water body in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So any discharge from this treatment plant would have to maintain the total maximum daily levels to that receiving water body, would have to stay below them. That's all part of the regulatory process.
In order to stay relatively organized, we do have a sign-up sheet, and people did sign up, and so I want to be respectful of those people and give everybody a chance to be heard that wants to be heard. So I'm going to call your name. If you don't want to come up, you don't have to. I would just ask, in the interest of time, try not to be too redundant of your questions or comments if they've already been addressed by another resident, if you can. I can't stress enough that this is hopefully just the first in a long process of involvement by Middletown Township in this proposal. So there will be other opportunities. Peter Jordan is the next name on the list.
That would be me.
What do you know? Okay,
My
Mr.
name is
Jordan.
Peter Jordan. I live at 225 Pine Glen Road, Swan Point Development. I was a reluctant speaker last Wednesday at the Newtown Township meeting, the board meeting. I was there with Gary, heard that presentation. Didn't want to speak, but they said something that my eyes popped out. Think in terms of a Warner Brothers cartoon. I was told I was guaranteed no odors at that plant. That's what got me up there. That's what got me here now. I'm not going to address it. I'm going to try to keep it brief. I'm going to go off script. Number one, people wanted to know Kansas versus here. Here in 1.5 miles, we got 12,000 people. The Kansas facility she spoke of in 1.5 miles has 700. 12,000 versus 700. It's surrounded by woods and open plains. Number two, was it discussed with other authorities? Good. It's nice that these things are taped. I rewatched the meeting last Wednesday. I wanted to learn a lot so I could at least come prepared. Yes, they have been approached apparently by at least one other local township whether they can discharge into the Newtown Authority. That is on record at the meeting last Wednesday. They've already been approached. Granted, it's preliminary, but they have already been approached. Now let me talk. My business is, I worked for 40 years, now I do this to amuse myself. I was a consultant for 40 years on the treatment of hazardous chemicals. You name it, I dealt with it. I even went to the Army's nerve gas facility. You want to know about nerve gas? I'm your man. But specifically to this, I'll talk about hydrogen sulfide, chlorine, and ammonia. Yes, they are deadly. Fortunately, at this plant, it is state-of-the-art. But state-of-the-art does not mean odor-free. What you smell at sewer plants is hydrogen sulfide. I'll refer to it as sewer gas. It exists. Let me give you an idea. Every one of you, well, there's 9,000 homes in Newtown. Every one of them has 2 or 3 vent stacks above them. You've all seen them. They're there for 2 reasons. One is so it flows nice and smoothly in the pipe. It gets you a nice vent. The second is so that the sewer gases do not get into your homes. There's a little water trap, and then the sewer gas goes up the roof. Whatever doesn't go there goes down the drain. What they're effectively saying is that the vents from 9,000 sewers, toilets, are going to go into our backyard. It's hydrogen sulfide. It's going into their initial closed treatment building and then an open pit. Now, yes, there are very good technologies to remove hydrogen sulfide. So it's in that building. It's got to go somewhere. So presumably you have containment and control to prevent it from going out. And there are very good control and containment devices. But they fail. They're affected by human error, mechanical failure, and the like. I love the person saying earlier that he gives training to wastewater treatment operators. I've got good friends in technology and industry. I called a bunch of favors. One of them operates 9 separate wastewater treatment plants of nearly identical state-of-the-art of what they're doing. In his words, he is 1 pump failure away from gassing out the neighborhood with hydrogen sulfide, sewer gas, even with the redundancy, even with the backup power. Sorry, they happen. I've started doing research. I found papers that indicate exactly how many pounds of hydrogen sulfide a day give off from each of these environments. I'm planning on doing a study on exactly that, and we have some glorious people in our development who can peer review it for me. It exists. It's out there. It's going to stink. Sorry, that's the way it works. So we will come up with circles on a regular basis on how much hydrogen sulfide is reviewed. Now, in order to be brief, I'll skip to one other thing. I wasn't going to cover this, but she brought it up. May I distribute something to the group? This is a different presentation. I applaud them. They listened to us at the Newtown meeting and adjust what they said. They no longer said guarantee of no odors. I guess that's a starting point. What they also said, it was emphasized, a slightly different emphasis on their point at the Newtown meeting than here. I understand that. You don't have a chance to approve it. They do. One of the things they emphasized over and over again was the reason for this plant going up was economics. Now, what I've done, this is a slide that, forgive the quality, I had to take a screen print this afternoon once I thought of this. This is from the presentation that was given last Wednesday. I call your attention to the bottom where it says review of historical payments to Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. One of the prime considerations they gave at that meeting over and over again was that they were going to save money for Newtown Township. We're Middletown, but be that as it may, they were going to save money for Newtown Township. And what they said was one of the crucial aspects was they wanted to predict how much Bucks County water and sewer costs were going to go up over a 30-year period. The way they did that was they looked at historical costs that they had been charged. And they estimate, as you see, well, it was on that slide, but they estimate an overall increase in the next 32 years of 6.2%. Now, at 6.2%, you can justify, forget the number, 130 million plant. You can justify that if it's going to go up 6.2%. But if you carefully look at the numbers, and they presented this at that meeting, basically, between 2002 and 2012, they went up 9.5% annually. Between 2013 and 2019, they only went up 1.4% annually. Not my numbers, theirs. They also said at the meeting that between 2022 and current, numbers haven't increased at all. Bucks County has not increased their rates. So when they came up with the 6.2%, I said, what? Are you kidding me? If you use the last 13 years, the numbers have actually gone up approximately 1.2 to 1.3%. So in 13 years, they've only gone up 1.3%. So what is this 6.2%? Forgive me, I'll use the analogy of a former president, voodoo economics. You can justify a plant on a 6.2 raise. I doubt you can justify it on a 1.2% raise. And this is only the beginning of the economic cost analysis. Think of it like a nice knitted sweater. Looks wonderful, but then you slowly start looking and taking apart little individually strands, and you've got nothing but a pile of dirty wool on the floor. Now again, you're Middletown Township. You're not Newtown Township. What I'd encourage you to do is form a task force now. Form a task force to look into this. You have many people here who are dying to volunteer. I'll give you some suggestions. Forgive me for taking, but you can form the township. I got to find my notes. I think I'll speak from this. I've ignored most of it. I might as well read some of it. Goal of the task force would be, first, research and determine the potential off-site impacts of the proposed Newtown sewer plant. Second, develop a list of concrete recommendations related to this plant to remove or mitigate these impacts. And finally, present these findings to appropriate boards, both at board of yourself, planning boards, whatever, for both Middletown, Newtown, and Lower Makefield. They're also impacted for this, so that the three communities are aware of these impacts. With that, thank you.
Thank you. Next is
I just
Gary.
want to address the economic analysis, just
Sure.
to be clear. Mr. Jordan's correct. The increases in the last 6 or 7 years have been much less, which is what makes us even more concerned about what's happening over the next 10 years, because for 10 years, 9.4% was the average, and on year 10, there was a 45% increase from Bucks County Water Sewer Authority. Since then, that's correct, 1.4%. But that does include, right before 2012, there was a 45% increase. So we speak in averages. It's just the only way to look at 20 years of history. And again, the recent lack of increase is is even more concerning from an economic standpoint.
Can I say something too as well? Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority owns 160 facilities. I don't know how many miles of sewers they have. They are in the process of TVing these lines over a 7-year period, spending $27 million. That's just to find the issues. That's not to fix them. Okay?
All right, next person on the list is Gary. What is it? Sorry. Sorry, man, I couldn't read your writing.
Listen, I'm 44. I've been dealing with it my whole life. It's Gary Diedloff, so it's okay. I'm 111 Clear Creek Road. I'm not going to repeat everything everyone said. Gary, great name. Development is awesome, but my biggest thing that no one's talked about, you said, I know Newtown, this is their project, but it's going to affect us. If you're talking about 2,000 residents, our property tax will go down. You're going to get $2,000 probably less from each resident. That's $4 million. How are you guys going to budget $4 million less? Where are you going to cut? That's all. I know everything else has been great. I'm not going to repeat everything said, so we can continue on. But that's it. Property tax is going to go down, and we're going to be out a lot of money. And that's it. I'm just bringing up rough numbers. I'm not anything. I work where I work, but I'm not going to mention that. But anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Dana Diedloff?
Oh, sorry, the other three don't want to speak. After that, Dana, Mike, Nicole, we're good.
Gotcha. All right, so then I got Tony Milovich.
I know you had Tony Milovich, 213 Adeline Place, Silver Lake Development in Langhorne. I know you had on one of your presentations, you showed the line of the sewage that you're currently using. What other areas were explored other than the current area that you're thinking about developing? And what criteria was used to come up with the decision to use that area there?
Excellent question. Excellent question.
Does anybody have an answer? Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm staying here because I might have more.
It's getting warm in here. There are only so many properties large enough in Newtown Township that would fit this in. And this was the one that became available. It was a matter of market opportunity. That's really the only decision. And we thought it had the least impact on the surrounding neighborhood. That was our thought. But
One of the questions I actually have to follow up there is, my understanding of their professional zone in Newtown is that for public utilities, it can only utilize 10% of your parcel for that public utility. Are you only going to be developing 10% of that parcel?
we'll only be building on 10%, and we'll make other improvements in the area, but it won't be construction. It'll be landscaping type of things.
So the area will only be 1.7 acres that you're building on?
Approximately. We haven't finished all that design work, so I don't know exactly, but we're well aware of that requirement.
Okay. So would you be going to the zoning hearing board to get a variance?
Yes.
If that's the case? Okay.
So what other parcels were considered?
No other parcels were considered because there were no others available at the time. We're willing to consider them as become available, but there really aren't any others.
Why do you think this one is okay?
Because it is okay.
It's not okay.
Well, I understand, but from our concerns, we have enough room, and could we build it? I live in less than half a mile away. I'm close. I'm on Upper Silver Lake Road.
Well, shame on you.
Well, all I can tell you is we're studying it. Our idea is to protect the citizens of Newtown, the residents of Newtown, to the greatest extent possible from the possibilities of economic catastrophe, from staying with the county in Philadelphia. But we're open to ideas. And as I said when I first started this conversation, if we determine that it's just not practical to do it, not healthy to do it, we won't do it. At that time, the property was too small, we thought, and it was very close to Crown Point development. Yeah, very close, yeah. And we just didn't think it was a good idea.
All right, the next person on the list is Felicia Alexander.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I am a long-term resident of the Swan Point neighborhood. My husband and I have raised our 3 children in Swan Point starting in 1991, and now we have 4 grandchildren who we expect to be visiting us regularly, as long as our neighborhood is healthy. I will not allow my grandchildren to come to our house if we are subject to this. And the reason for that is because I was subject to workplace contamination. I taught for 25 years in New Jersey, and the district where I taught had building toxicity that was concealed from the employees. Many of my students became ill, I became ill, many of my colleagues became ill. This past summer, I had a brain tumor, and the brain tumor had to be surgically removed. My neurosurgeon told me she could not tell me that it wasn't due to my exposure to these toxins 15 years ago. I ask you as our elected officials, and Mr. Esposito, you're our town solicitor, right? So we need your help on this. This isn't something that we're willing to walk away from and to stop talking about. It's too important. The economic part, I'll let other people analyze the economics. The scientific part, I'll let other people analyze that. I don't want kids getting sick. I don't want all those schools that were mentioned having to have their kids get massive problems with autoimmune issues. This is not something that's a simple, okay, we can just ignore this. We have to face this. We have to oppose it strategically and with the support of our supervisors. And I understand Newtown's trying to do what's best for Newtown, but they don't live in isolation. We conduct business in Newtown. Ooh, what would happen if all of the Middletown people boycotted Newtown? Talking about economics. So that's why I wanted to speak tonight, because I feel that it's so important to deal with the health ramifications. And in our neighborhood, as in many of the other North Middletown Township neighborhoods, we have a lot of senior citizens. Okay, I'm retired. Many of the people here tonight are retired. We chose to stay in this neighborhood for our retirement, our career as retirees, because we love where we live. It's been our home for three to 4 decades. We need to protect it. We need to protect Core Creek Park, and we need to be doing this together. So I ask for your cooperation, your assistance, your legal expertise, so that we can oppose this in a way that's going to be meaningful and not finding out 2 months from now, oh, well, yeah, we passed this in Newtown, and we have nothing that we can do to call it back.
Can you go up to the, because it's hard to hear you from. I can't answer that question. Here's what I can tell everybody. We recognize and acknowledge that everybody in this room is here because they're opposed to this project. We get it. And we've heard from you prior to tonight, and we've heard from you tonight, and I'm going to allow people to keep speaking. I'm not ending public comment. But I want you to know that we have heard your concerns, we share your concerns, and this board is committed to, after tonight, working with our legal counsel and our township engineer and our other professionals to figure out what our options are to move forward to best represent and protect the residents of our township. So we... To answer your question, ma'am, what that looks like and what that outcome is, I can't answer that for you tonight. I can only tell you that this is the beginning of the process for us to learning more, getting more information, and seeing what our options are as a neighboring municipality. All right, so we can move on with public comment. The next is Tom Kane, I believe it is.
Yes, actually, after what you just said, I'd just like to thank you for that. I don't see any need to take up anybody else's time. These gentlemen, great cases together against the project. We're 2,000 feet away, and I really don't want my property value to crash. But I'd like to take a swim in the pool without.
Bill Everett.
Bill Everett, 286 Hidden Spring Lane. Good evening. My name is Bill Everett, and I live in Swan Point Development, which is located off Woodburn Road near 332 Bypass. First, I'd like to thank the Middletown Board of Supervisors for inviting the Newtown Sewer Authority to this meeting to present their sewer plan to the residents of Middletown Township. At the October 21st Middletown Board of Supervisors meeting, I voiced my environmental concerns about the sewer project and the wastewater impact on Lake Luxembourg and Core Creek. Tonight, I would like to comment on a similar situation that occurred in 2016 and what Middletown was able to do that helped lead to resolution of that problem. Residents may remember that in 2016, a company called Elcon Recycling Services tried to develop a hazardous waste treatment plant in Falls Township near the Delaware River. There was a Bucks County Courier-Times article on July 13, 2016, entitled, "Middletown Supervisors Pass Resolution Against Elcon Plant in Falls." I quote from the article, "Middletown has become the latest area municipality to go on record against a hazardous waste treatment plant proposed by Elcon Recycling Services for a location in the Keystone Industrial Port Complex near the Delaware River in neighboring falls. I see some striking similarities between the two projects. Waste treatment near an important body of water. Falls Township ultimately voted against the project. The current supervisors were not there in 2016, but Stephanie, the township manager, was. Maybe Stephanie can comment further. I respectfully request that the Middletown Board of Supervisors consider developing and passing a resolution against the Newtown sewer plant. Thank you for your time.
I think we all remember Elcon. I don't think any of us were on the board then. I think I was actually running for office when that issue was in the forefront. And your point is well taken. Resolution is certainly something that we will consider one of the options, but we also want to see what other options there are as well. But thank you very much, Mr. Everett. Chuck Lataki.
Hi, I'm Chuck Lataki. I've been a resident in the Swan Point development for almost 39 years. I want to thank you for what you've brought to the attention and for the amount of people that you brought the attention of this project. For us to be here tonight, it stands up for what our community has built and how many years a lot of these people have been in it. Something like this to come into the development and cause it to be broken apart by not being happy with the environment that you've lived in for so long. I think that if we can look at it and see what we have here for, I don't know, what's our development, 40 years old or whatever? It's just it's starting to rebirth with new people, younger people coming into development. There's handfuls of us that have been there for 40 years. But it's the community. My wife and I, at our age, our older boys, said, "Hey, Mom, Dad, what are you living in that big house for? There's just two of you." You know, we've looked to go to Delaware, we looked at different places, but it's the community we've lived in for 40 years, almost 40 years. And it's the people you know, it's the places you know, it's the things, the community. Cork Creek Park is 2 blocks from where we live. We live on that bottom end of Swan Point. It's just something you don't move to and have that type of property, you know. The hospital's around the corner. There's been times when we've had to run around the corner to go to the hospital. Those are the type of things you don't want to move away from because of one of these type of treatment plants coming in. But I tell you, if it does come in, it's going to ruin the whole community. And I just wanted to step up and thank you, you and Peter, for the things that you brought to the attention tonight. I hope that we can put it out of its misery and let it go somewhere else.
Josie George.
Neighbor, everything he said.
Noted. Brant Warner.
Hello, my name is Brant Warner. I live at 101 Banks Road. I think I've got a very vested interest in the presentation that was here tonight. I thank the board for allowing Newtown to come down, and as much as we're all disgruntled, I do thank Newtown for coming down and presenting. My house is the corner property on Lower Silver Lake and Banks, and I sit on my front porch and I look at the trees that are going to be torn down to build this facility every morning. So for me, part of the charm of the house, which was supposed to be my dream home, is going to be taken away by a waste treatment facility. Take out all the science that's been presented tonight. Do appreciate all the numbers and everything else. A lot of what we have in here tonight is feelings. We don't want it because we feel it's going to be bad for the neighborhood. It's going to be bad for this. One of the things I'm very disgruntled with is Newtown Township's zoning and ordinance. We have a Wawa going up. Great, there's a Wawa going up. They couldn't have put it on the other side of the bypass. They put it on our side of the bypass. Anybody that goes to that Wawa is not getting on the bypass to get back down to Woodburn Road. They're going to come down Lower Silver Lake past my house. I won't be able to get out of my driveway because of the potential extra traffic. Now we add a sewer facility where there's going to be heavy traffic of trucks coming in there to take out the sewage. All the additional chemicals that are going to be coming in. Yeah, I'm upset. My feelings are a big part of it because that's my home. That's where we love to live. We bought the property because we want to retire here, and that's it. The one thing that I did not like when the Wawa was going up, and I don't know if it was said at this one, it was said in the meeting that nobody in Newtown Township is affected by this proposal. That's because it's right next to us. It affects Middletown, not Newtown. So I just ask that Newtown takes into consideration their neighbors and be neighborly about this. They say no other properties were available. How about taking a part of the township complex north of Newtown? There's a very large property up there. Repurpose some of that. Do something else. There's a lot of property that is in Newtown Township that is not bordering our properties, our homes, that they could do this and it would be less impactful even to their own residents. Thank you.
John McDonald. No John McDonald. Raj Patel. Harry Patel.
Harry Patel, 650 White Ash Drive, Langhorne. It's mind-boggling, this gentleman and everybody give us information. I move here because of the park. And I go running, and they're gonna put this water in there, it's drying. So township should consider filling the water from them to us and have a township problem. I think we should form some kind of legal system here to notify all these residents which is affecting. Because I learned 2 hours ago. Somebody sent me the text, and thus I'm here. So I think township should notify all these residents what's happening in the new town. Because I don't think so they care. If they care, the lady there try to keep explaining everything. I understand she have an engineer degree, but I do develop few properties. But dilemma here is, when you develop the property, everybody get the notice. Here, Langhorne people who's affecting, this gentleman just stood up, do not have a notice. So how the township make sure that we will be notified of every process? I'm here if people want to jump in, create a group, ready to fight legally. I don't have a problem with that. So please consider very seriously. There's a large homes, millions of dollars we paid, and move here because we love this town. Thank you.
Manzi Patel. Okay. Susan Zapko. All right. Dale Boychuk. Brian Turner. Claire Weaver. Is there anybody else that wants to speak rather than just keep going through the list? All right. So the people that have their hands up, why don't you guys just come up one by one and we'll do away with the list.
Hi, I'm Frank Falco. I live at 39 Shady Brook Drive in the Villas of Shady Brook, which is included on this list. And to that point, and by the way, if you look on the map, it's 1.9 miles from the proposed plant, but if that's driving, but if you actually look at the distance, it is about a mile from point to point. And one thing that should be added to this list, even though it hasn't been, it's still in proposal stage, it's going to happen, or the 161 homes, Farms Edge at Shady Brook on the farm site, that's going to happen. And they'll be even closer than we are to this. So that was just a statement. Another question I had for the people from Newtown, from the Sewer and Water Authority, is there still a proposal for, and I forget how many apartments it was, perhaps 100 and some to 200 and some at 42 University Drive, which would be proximate to the plant and the Wawa?
That's the land they took.
So they took that, okay. Okay. And then, thank you. And then someone just before did ask, and this was my question, you know, what can you do? Can we actually do anything? And you did answer that. But Core Creek, is that, Core Creek itself, is that strictly in Middletown or is part of it in Newtown? The point being, and I know you're going to be discussing this, can we stop? Maybe we can't stop the plant from being built because it's a different township. Can we stop water from dumping into Middletown Township? Can that happen?
I don't know the answer to that question, but we're going to find out what our options are. It's the best I can tell you.
All right, thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, and welcome guests from Newtown. I trust you. Trust me, my neighbors are very nice people. I hope you don't take this the wrong way. I'm sure you're very nice people as well. I think what you're feeling here is a lot of fear, and a lot of the fear comes from the unknown. We just learned about this. We haven't seen any of the documents. We haven't seen any of the enhanced effluent standards that you guys have been tasked with by the EPA. And we've got some people that are a lot smarter than me that can read those documents and know what those documents mean. And we didn't move towards a nuisance. We perceive a nuisance, rightly or wrongly, moving towards us. And, you've done a nice job here trying to explain things, but it's difficult for us as residents, I think, and maybe I don't speak for everybody, to believe that the project's not far along when the land has already been purchased. Exactly. For you to have... Oh, no, I got more. And I'm just pointing out where our questions arise. We struggle to understand how this is the best site when the first gentleman that spoke acknowledged no other sites were checked. Although you discount the prior site because the footprint's too small. You also know that there's not going to be any odor or anything, but yet there's no plans. So if there's no plans, how do you know what chemicals are going to be used? How do you know that there's not going to be any odor? And if there is an odor, what the stink zone or stigma zone is going to be? Whether the other facility might not have been a suitable facility that was already owned. We do know, however, that other facility was also jettisoned because of proximity to Newtown Township residents. And that's not a problem here because there's not a whole lot of residents of Newtown Township close to this proposed site, but there's a whole lot of Middletown Township residents nearby, which seems like an unneighborly thing to do. So I guess my question for you is twofold. One, when the land was taken by eminent domain, had this site been thought about and discussed with Newtown Township prior to that? And my second question is, will you commit to voluntarily providing us with documents submitted along the process so that there's some transparency along the way? Those are my two questions for you guys at the municipal authority. And that's all I have. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I think the one question, we're here because we're committed to transparency. I know that the land became available and there were apartments proposed on that land. And if it continued to move forward, the land would have potentially could have no longer been available. I'm not a land development engineer, so I don't want to speak to details that I'm not aware of. There was some concern that if the authority did not move on the property in short term, that the land may not be available. I can tell you that. I can tell you that the authority is committed to transparency. What the details of exactly what that looks like, as you say, commit to documents. My hope, and I don't speak for the board, so I do have to take some things back for the board. You know, as wheels start turning, my hope you have some very obviously great representatives of Middletown Township, and the authority wants to hear the concerns and work with them. So my hope is that we'll have a couple meetings where we can sit down across the table and discuss concerns as the project moves forward. I can tell you right now, we have not even surveyed the property. The first step in a real design is doing a field survey of the property. We have not done that yet. This is literally, talk about Google Earth. This is Google Earth, pull the parcel out, work with the technology professionals and manufacturers and size things based on flow, but all preliminary, nothing real, nothing how much concrete, what is there rock underneath the site, none of that has been done. That is all the next part of the next step. So I don't know if that helps answer your questions or not.
I would just like documents, can documents like what you submitted, like the affluent standards, will you guys commit to producing, for example, that to email me, and I'm happy to circulate it to everybody here.
Yeah, I mean, I need to obviously speak to the board. I can't answer that question specifically. I'm not a right-to-know specialist. I'm not, there's just certain things that I'm not saying the answer would be no by any stretch. I just don't want to speak out of my expertise area. I would want to consult with the board. Okay? As if that's fair.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for allowing us all to continue to speak. As angry as we are, thankfully, my neighbors are very eloquent and prepared notes. I had some notes, and they're in my bag back there. But first off, my name is Melissa Murray Rigney. I live at 423 White Swan Way in Swan Point. I just moved to 423 White Swan Way from 26 Katy Drive in Swan Point because I love my neighbors and I love living in Middletown Township. Prior to living at 26 Katy Drive, I lived at 2501 Palmer Avenue, Bristol, Pennsylvania, 0.91 miles from the Lower Bucks Joint Municipal Wastewater Treatment Plant. It didn't smell every day, but when it smelled, it was awful. I could no longer even fathom being in my backyard and swimming in my pool or trying to stop loving the joy of a cool breeze through my house, because at all times the windows had to be shut. If it rained and was warm, it smelled bad. If it was cold and windy, it could smell bad. And not every single day, because trust me, if it smelled really bad when I went to buy that house initially, I wouldn't have bought it. I find the Newtown Joint Authority to be disingenuous, repeatedly through their professional coming up here and telling us that it was preliminary. We all now know that this property was available as a means of a taking. That doesn't happen quickly. In a former lifetime, I served as a solicitor to boards like yours. A taking of a property is not preliminary or overnight. That property was privately owned and was about to be developed. And the property was somehow condemned, and a taking was completed to make it available as a perfect solution, I don't know, at the 11th hour, it seems as if, for the joint authority. It's hard for us to sit here and listen to that and to believe it. And I think that as residents of Middletown Township and as a Board of Supervisors, you should also be offended by that as a notion that this is all preliminary. Also, I served in-house counsel at a very, very large engineering company. They bought this property as a taking, so it's been surveyed. They have 30% engineering plans. Okay, maybe they don't have their Alta survey completed, but they know what's there. They went on a costly training session out in Kansas. They know what they're doing. And they're trying to sell us on an idea that, like, maybe they could backtrack it. I'm not sure they can backtrack the taking. What, give it back? How many millions of dollars it was reported that they spent buying this property? This wasn't a preliminary search. This wasn't an option agreement that they executed. They didn't see this property owner and say, hey, we would like to explore the idea of putting a wastewater treatment facility on this property, but because we don't have all the approvals, we would like an option, because if we don't get our approvals, then we can't do it. This is all but a fait accompli. The fact that they're in here showing us, asking us questions, you know, letting us speak and put on a little show, for what? They have all intentions of moving full steam ahead. Why? Because they don't want to be a part of the regional system that we're a part of. Ms. Funk stood up here and said, I don't know if that's going to cost you more money now being part of that system. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician. I know that there are lots of people here who can figure it out, but if you were talking about one pie and now there's one less taker of a piece of pie, hey, guess what? All of our pie pieces are going to be bigger. Why? Because they don't want to be part of the regional system, because the regional system's going to cost money to improve, to maintain. Well, we're going to have to improve it and maintain it as well. Why? Why do we have to throw out what's old just to build something new? There are a lot of questions that we should be asking, and we should be asking it of them. It can't probably go in the middle of Newtown because there's no waterway for them to dump it all into. We're the ones with the really nice waterway. There's nothing wrong with taking the money that they would have spent as part of their pro rata share to continue to invest in our shared system. Please do whatever you can to support us. Support yourselves. Believe me, that stink goes a lot farther than a mile. oppose this. Thank you.
Good evening. Virginia King Walsh. I live at 313 White Swan Way in Swan Point. I've been a civil litigation attorney for about 20 years, so nothing I say right now is going to be anywhere near as intelligent as any of the other people that have spoken already. But I do have one question, and not to reiterate what everybody else has been saying. My concerns are the same. I share them. However, one thing that I noticed in doing research and that I did see in their presentation, particularly about in Kansas, that facility, from what I understand, it is an aerobic facility. One thing that I know has not been addressed yet specifically, and maybe the Environmental Commission can maybe do some investigation on this, is to what extent an aerobic facility that uses the air for treatment and chemicals is going to impact the health of the air, not just the smell. Because all of the people that are within that stink zone, to the potential that there's going to be some type of environmental impact to other individuals and health risks through the air and airborne toxins, I would like to know the answer to that question. And not to be disingenuous, but I don't want the answer to that question to come from anyone from Newtown. I want it to be from our own people and our own investigators so that I can actually trust the answer. Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Rosa from Swan Point. Gary, how's it going? Look, I think it's very clear that this plant, they have every intention of building it there. It is, as my neighbor said, a fait accompli. And the mistake here for the folks on the board and for the solicitor, the mistake would be to have a light touch. The time for a light touch and for nice communications and hopefully good faith transparency, you do not want to put your faith in that. I would think in the next 30 days, this would be a thought for consideration. Put a request for proposal out to the top 4 litigation firms that you think can handle environmental litigation, land use planning. You have a wealth of knowledge here with Gary and others, environmental engineering, litigators in this area. I have 0 experience in environmental stuff, but I do know this, and I'm a lawyer, it is late in the day. Do not have a light touch. Get the request for proposal out. That's free advice. The strategy that comes in, like the budget, what it's going to cost to do that, that's where this is going to end up. One of my neighbors asked, well, what can you do? Is there anything you can do? Well, you can't do much, because this is perfect arbitrage. All of the externalities of this project are borne by Middletown residents. It's beautiful. You almost have to tip your hat, right? But there is something we can do, and that is we can go to court if we need to. And if you want transparency, it won't be one of us asking nicely, oh, please give us your documents. It'll be on the business end of interrogatories and a request for document production, and let them eat that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rob Cerviello, and I live at 55 Gunning Lane in Laurel Oaks. Do appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I actually had no intention of speaking when I came in here. I wanted to come in here as an observer, and I'm not an engineer. No environmental role my entire life, but I do work with numbers all day. I work in banking, and when I saw some of those charts up there, which to me were thoroughly disingenuous, my eyes almost popped. So anybody who works with statistics knows that models like that are complete garbage if you don't know what the inputs are and you don't have all the contextual pieces of it. I saw one massive contextual fatal flaw. You saw prices were going up over the last 25 years. That's great. So was inflation. Roughly 90% since the 98, 99, 2000 timeframe. But you went on, and I think somebody also defended housing prices. Well, I think it was you, Mrs. Funk, that said, well, housing prices didn't affect the $1 million home that sold near my house over the last few years. In the years after COVID, you could have sold a doghouse for $100K. So, but more specifically, we keep getting told that this is preliminary, this is preliminary, this is preliminary. Okay, so I'm going to interpret that as we're in some stage of the workflow. So I'm also going to assume that we have an experienced group that came here, and thanks for coming, by the way. Where in the past have you seen a plant like this? What has stopped it at this point in the game? Some examples, I don't care if it's here, if it's in Kansas, if it's Rhode Island, wherever. What specific situations and reasons were used to kill a project like this in your experience? Anybody, sure?
Newtown. We already spoke to Newtown, evaluating a plant in 2013 at a different parcel, and it was abandoned because of residential impacts.
Because of residential impacts.
And size of the lot, and size of the lot.
Okay. So basically the residents didn't want it. Was it
Well,
big?
well, I think there was an evaluation done. I wasn't with the authority then. All I know is in 2013, evaluation was done on a different property that was half the size of this property, and it was determined that it wasn't a good fit. Okay?
Appreciate that.
And I guess to speak to your inflation question, we did look at the rate of inflation over the same period, which was about half of the increase percentage. The average rate of inflation over that same 20-year period was just below 3% on average, and the average increase in cost was 6.4.
And is that similar to what the rest of the country's been seeing?
I don't know how to answer that. I used a
So you just use a single data point to...
single data point. I used annual inflation and compared it.
Specific area, you're saying. The question is, where can I get access to what was behind that study?
Again, we talked about that. I have to talk to the board as to what I can release publicly, right? There's certainly issues, right?
Who will we follow up with after you have that conversation? Like, who specifically contact?
Yeah. The authority, probably Warren Gormley is the special projects manager for the authority. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lori Link. I'm at 383 White Swan Way. I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not an attorney. I was a kindergarten teacher. So I'm going to speak as a kindergarten teacher in my teacher voice. We have a rule in the classroom: clean up your own mess. Clean up your own mess. If you build a sewage treatment plant in Newtown and you leave your mess for Middletown to clean up, you're not playing nice in the sandbox. How can you help us to clean up your mess? Or are we expected to absorb the cost of cleaning up your mess? You need to do better.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name, everyone's going to laugh, Bradley Cooper. And I can prove it. I got a driver's license. So I didn't just move in the area. I'm actually a Newtown resident, Middletown Township resident, in solidarity with the residents here. Because I was, and you could go back and look at videos on YouTube, because that's where they share them, and they have them posted on there. I fought with my buddy adamantly, strongly, and tirelessly to stop the Wawa from coming on the bypass, because I didn't think it was an appropriate project to go on there, not because of health reasons, not because of waste or this or that, because I don't want to see my township turn into Street Road by Feasterville, Warminster, where I have to work. I don't want to see homes you know, and buildings and everything take over every little green area of Newtown because Newtown has a lot of open areas. So I fought adamantly against the township against that. There's three main people for all you folks because you're going to have to fight Newtown on this. Phil Calabro, Ellen Snyder, and Dennis Fisher. They're the three people who approved the Wawa in Newtown. And John Mack, who was here talking about the safety in Summit Square to get crosswalks and stuff, he was one of the people who was fighting against it because he didn't believe in it. So he was one of the people that helped try to fight that. And there is a Republican guy, Kyle Davis, who also fought against that, saying that we should have took this up to the courts and fought this because he thought it was a terrible idea. Now, some of the supervisors on the board, for instance, Ellen Snyder is supposed to be an environmentalist. She's supposed to care about the environment. She's on the environmental board of Newtown, and she passed an ordinance that took many, many years to pass that you can't have plastic bags in Newtown. It is forbidden and taken off the books. So she's okay with plastic bags being taken off, but not with Wawa being put and sewage plants being put or places like that. I'm going to assume it's not finalized yet, and I didn't go to any of the local meetings in past few months because I feel that they could care less about what I have to say because I complain all the time there. But I go there and I screamed and yelled, and she said at the end of the day, well, it's because it would cost taxpayers too much money if we continue to fight this Wawa. We have no end game to win, and we have no way to stop them because they have an E90 usage that the township had to put in place because Wawa made the politicians in Washington have to agree to this. So now they had to make it, and they decided to put their E90 usage in the area next to the church, which Wawa, which is Provco that owns the land, got from the church and was able to sell it to Provco, which then sells the property to Wawa so they can build their Wawa there. So as I said, I tried fighting it. I tried yelling and screaming. Didn't seem like they cared. You can go on YouTube and you can see how I complained about the residents that live right behind the church, and they basically said, well, they don't own the house. They rent it from the church, so who cares? That was Provco and Wawa's lawyers and people that worked with them to try to talk about what they have to do. 500 feet of sewage to get to a sewage area for it to be useful. They didn't care about nothing, me and my buddy. I tried to rally local businesses because they're going to be impacted that sell gasoline right down the road on Silver Lake Road. They've been there for 40, 50 years, that they took it over from their grandparents. So I tried my best, but if you want to fight this, unfortunately, these people can't make the choice. They can't really say much because it has no effect on them. In the most part, in my opinion. It's Newtown. If you want to go and fight it, I'll go with you and fight it. I'll be there next to you. But like I said, if you want to know anything about what's going on in Newtown, you can come talk to me afterwards, and I'll tell you. And one thing I do have to say is I appreciate you supervisors. I never met you. I don't live in Middletown. I go to Middletown all the time and eat at all your fabulous establishments, businesses. I patronize all of them. And you guys seem to be fair and honest. You actually care what we have to say and actually care to listen to what I have to say and ramble on for 2 hours, even though it's real late at night. So I appreciate it. And I wish my township was the same way, so we wouldn't have to be here screaming and yelling at stuff like this. Thank you.
That's a tough act to follow. Hi, I'm Donna Salvucci, 144 Pine Glen Road, Swan Point Development. Thank you, certainly, to the Board of Supervisors. It has been a long night, and thank you as well to the authority. This is the second time I've heard their presentation. Well, I haven't been back since I asked for the traffic light, Nick, so thank you. I do sincerely, on behalf of Swan Point, want to thank the board and Nick for all of your support with the traffic light at Swift Road and Lower Silver Lake Road at Woodbourne. It has had a tremendous impact. I don't know how other people feel, but I want to just take this opportunity to say it has. I do not hear screeching tires anymore. I have not seen any accidents. A few traffic stops, that's great. It really has made an impact. In fact, I'm so proud. I mean, it's really made a difference. It's a quality of life difference. There's that crosswalk, which is wonderful. And I started walking my dog this summer across. I have never crossed that crosswalk walking down Lower Silver Lake. And here I am, that beautiful walk down Lower Silver Lake it's just beautiful. And now I'm so concerned. So I'm here tonight. I have a very short, different perspective. I'm here as a psychologist. So I have a little bit of a different perspective I want to share. The whole sniff test is a very difficult thing to measure. It's not objectifiable, in my understanding. So I've done a little bit of research. There is that school that Mr. Sandermeyer mentioned that is just 900 feet away that serves a special population of children on the spectrum and children with special needs. I am not here to represent that school. I have reached out to that school. I'm waiting to hear back from them. I've sent them some information just today. They're in a process of moving floors or something, so I'm waiting to hear back. But I do know enough about neuropsychology to say a few things that I think we can all appreciate. The sniff test for any of us is subjective. Do you like the same perfume that someone else likes? Do you like the same smells of cooking that someone else likes? Is there that one person in your family that can smell things ahead of other people? And guess what? If you have a child on the spectrum, because of the hardwiring and the structural abilities of the brain and the connections and the ability to process information and to cope with information when it comes to smells, which are very sensitive. Children on the spectrum can be hypersensitive to smells and smell things that you or I cannot smell. They can process or misprocess those smells and react to them in ways that causes those repetitive behaviors, that hyperstimulated behaviors. And we have a school 900 feet away serving the autistic community and special medical needs. Now, that's stunning. That's scary. What we're not even talking about is the 134% rise in the autistic population in Bucks County over the past several years. So we're talking about, we have not just children, but we have adults living in Swan Point with autism and on the spectrum. So again, it's not my specialty, and hopefully we can get somebody from that school to come and talk. But I do think it's important to consider the needs of those with special needs, because they may be able to smell and react to smells that you and I, because we're blessed and we don't have those challenges in our life, are not dealing with, and we may not be aware of. So that is just one other point that I wanted to share. And then finally, just putting a few things together, the Walcott site, my understanding is it's not working at capacity. It's a new site. My understanding is this site could work at a much greater capacity. And I thought from the other meeting that it was not just one municipality that was approached, but maybe more than one. So I think we have to be very cautious. I'll invite you to be very cautious that other small municipalities may be invited in, what that would do to the environmental impact, and also the money that we pay as more municipalities might go into this new proposed site, our money as residents going into our sewage bills going up. Just a thought. Thank you so much for listening.
Good evening. My name is Al Holliday, 613 Swan Way. Been there for 40 years. My wife and I are both retired, and we want to stay there. With the sewer treatment plant, if it goes through, and if it does what we think it may do, we may end up selling, which would be bad for us. I guess I'm an engineer by background, and I came here hoping to hear some technical information about a study that was done talking about why this location was picked and why it's the best thing for Newtown. I wanted to hear about infrastructure plans and what-if scenarios. I didn't hear any of that. I basically heard the lot became available, and who knows how it became available. We could buy it cheap, so we bought it. And we've gone out and we've looked at a waste treatment plant that will fit in the footprint, and that's what we're going to run with. I heard a couple things, and I guess, Jerry, you talked a lot about your people, and your people being Newtown people. We're talking about Middletown Township people now, so we're talking about my people and our people, okay? So I guess it's a situation where I'd be really concerned about the infrastructure that would be needed. We talked about the water going into Core Creek Park, Lake Luxembourg. What if a study's done and it can't do that? You said, we'll just divert it to Neshaminy. What does that mean? Where will that diversion go? Will you be digging up other parts of Middletown Township to get pipes to go over to Neshaminy? I think that what was missing here was the study. We want to put a plan in. This is the infrastructure that would be needed to get the stuff to the plant, because that's all going to have to be diverted from where it goes now, right? Has any of that study been done?
Preliminarily, yes.
Preliminary. So is that available for us to look at? Is it available?
I'm going to say, again, there was a preliminary evaluation done that considered both treatment and conveyance. There is a report available. I cannot speak for the board, and I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what can be released publicly, just like I said before.
Okay. So I think what we need for Middletown Township is a committee put together to have somebody that can be representing Middletown Township in all of the meetings so we understand what they're doing. I think a lot of stuff is being done under the table, and we've really got to know what's going on. I mean, things like the capacity of the treatment plant. What is the capacity of the plant that you want to put in? Is it 2, 3, 4 times the amount of the 9,000 people you need? Do we know that?
2.5 million gallons a day, which is the average day right now is 2 million gallons a day with a factor for growth.
So that can handle how many people?
Well, it's not, it doesn't really work by people. It's based on their current demand and an allowance for growth.
Allowance for twice the capacity?
No.
Growth of what?
20%.
20%?
Yes.
Okay. I think there's a lot of information that we need to get from Newtown, and I guess there's a lot of people. I'm retired, I'll volunteer. Gary, I'll be your left-hand man. I'm left-handed, doesn't matter. But we need to get together and do this quickly because time is of the essence. And right now, I think they're hoping that we're not going to do anything. And then when shit hits the fan, literally, it's going to be too late. Thank you.
My name's Fred Thomas. I live at 1515 Franklin Road, Langhorne, PA. I've been here since '68, and I've seen Lake Luxembourg take many different shapes. And if you look at it today, the upper end on the side of the road there, the north side of the road, they've dredged that, but they haven't dredged more than maybe 60 feet. They left the sediment at the other end of it and then almost through the area. I don't think it's been dredged since we're there. And if you're talking about a company that's going to come in and take water that's been modified and introduce it to there, at the level that it is now, it would all lay at that upper area. Your ratio of going into a larger, vast amount. If we had a continued flow through there, it would disintegrate, take it down to a much lesser point, and it would disappear. But the way it is now, this isn't the first time that Lake Luxembourg has been dry. It's been a couple times it's had that. I don't know if you can keep that as a resource to dilute the water coming out of the plant into a greater amount. Now you have a greater amount in there normally and a good flow. And it was a desalinization plant originally for the Delaware River, because they had a plant down there that would take water in. And if the water that was with salt came up further, they couldn't pull it into their plants in Philadelphia. So that was one of the reasons they developed Lake Luxembourg. And that's gone by the way now. I don't think the plant's still vital now anymore. But the point is, you want to take that water and get it to the Neshaminy Creek somehow. And you don't have very many options. You either pipe it or you come up with some other way. You're not going to just disappear to dissolve it in the air. It's something for you to think about. I wish you'd take a look at that. Okay, thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Walton. I live in Maple Point. I recently moved there for better quality of life. And I'm here just to talk to you not from a water perspective or environmental or engineering perspective, but talk to you from an actuarial perspective, which is my background. And one thing that I've seen a lot today, or lack thereof, is lack of credible data to support their project. And with any actuarial report, there has to be a risk analysis study. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into risk. You have external factors, you have environmental, you have political factors, you have lots of factors, mental factors and medical factors, because I heard a lot of people talk about the concerns for their quality of life as this project goes along. So I asked the Board of Supervisors that you should seriously consider getting a copy of any risk analysis report, because with any project, we heard about the bells and whistles, right? But the yada yada over the so-called environmental hazards that could potentially happen down the road. They had one bullet point about it. Nothing was ever discussed about it. And I would like to see information on any risk factors that are even known, or believe it or not, there's a lot of unknown factors that we don't even know about. We're only talking about the known factors, but there's lots of unknown factors that will resonate 5, 10, 20 years down the line. So that's what I really would request, that you get a copy of that risk report and see what kind of studies were done, because any data can support any clause that you want. They said they test samples and everything passed, but you had charts up that talked about the financial reward of doing this project. But that's only a presentation just to make it look good, but where's the data to support that evidence? That's all I have to say.
Hi, my name is Lauren LaRoe. I live at 18 Seckelpair Road in Levittown. I am chair of Middletown's Environmental Advisory Council, and I just want to thank you guys for inviting Newtown to present this presentation today. And I want to thank you guys for coming down and having the courage to come to our community and share this terrible news with us, because you knew it was terrible coming in and you still came and you answered our questions, and I appreciate that. I'm heartened by your response, Mike, that you guys are interested in this and you want to pay attention, you want to do what we can. We may or may not have abilities to do certain things, but I really appreciate your willingness to do that. And I just want to offer, I know, Mike, you said that you'd be relying on the EAC. I just want to formally offer that our members are here and willing to lend their expertise. We would be appreciative of being part of any meetings or commissions that you put together. And I thank you guys for your time.
Diane Welsh, Swan Point. Here's what I don't understand tonight. Where's Jim Worthington? Where's the owner of the Wawa? That is a privately owned company. When Jim Worthington wants something done, as we all know what he accomplished in Bucks County, he can get it done. I'm very confused tonight to all of you, and thank you all for coming, but where is he? And Wawa is a privately owned company.
He doesn't live in Middletown.
He lives in Newtown. However, his club is in Middletown. Is it not? It's in Newtown, but he's going to be affected by the smell, is what I meant to say. So this is what I don't understand. We all came out here tonight to be supportive. Myself included. I did not reach out to Jim. Did anybody else? Somebody gave the example of how that smell is going to waffle onto his facility. So, exactly.
You only answered that question because I did talk to him.
Yes.
Very lengthy conversation.
Yes. Yes.
I spoke. So, sorry, Mike.
I don't want to get into a conversation about what Jim Worthington knows or doesn't know. Jim doesn't live in this township, and his property's not in this township. So, I think we've heard a lot of public comment.
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Arlene Roloff. I actually live in Richborough. My daughter lives in Newtown. She found out about this about a week and a half ago and is under the impression from all of her neighbors who are all within a mile to 2 miles of this facility that none of them knew that this was happening. It was hidden in an agenda. So my question to you is, when did you know?
Not that long ago, candidly.
When?
I don't remember when we first learned about it.
A week, a month, a year, because they just found out they have babies. They're living in a community of a lot of people who had to move out of the city in this rush. And like someone said about buying a doghouse for, $1 million.
I will tell you
They're
that
one of those people.
Dana Kane was the first person to tell me about it, my colleague on the board. I had not heard about it until she told me.
When was
And
that?
I don't know, a few weeks, a month ago? I don't know.
Guess.
I said a few weeks or a month ago. And the first thing we did was ask Ms. Tioli-Cools to reach out to the Newtown Authority and ask them to come to Middletown, and here they are. And then they did that very quickly.
All right, I'll tell you all that a lot of the people in Newtown did not know about this. And we're all hoping that at their next board meeting, that their room is not big enough, that we have to move that meeting to the high school. Yes. Because you're all there and they're all there, because I guarantee you, they didn't know. That's my daughter, Jamie. She's been sending emails out to a lot of your neighborhoods, asking you to come here today, working with Gary. She has talked, she had a communication, but it was very minimal and it didn't say anything. But she is.
Ma'am, you're facing away from the microphone, so we can't hear what you're saying.
That's fine, because I'm gonna step away. You answered my question. Thank you.
Okay. All right, can we shut down the public comment then? Oh.
I'd like to thank Gary, John Switer, 210 Clear Creek Road, Langhorne. I came as an observer tonight just to listen, and you get the impression if you take a vote, it's only symbolic. But how can you throw a monkey wrench in this? And it's lawsuits. One gentleman mentioned that you ought to put out to different law firms, and you had to make it as difficult as possible for them where they go and they sell the land. It's simple.
There's a lot of buyer for the land.
I'm sorry?
There could be a lot of buyer for the land. There's a premium land.
Exactly. So let them see what it's going to cost them with lawsuits. Now, I think if not tonight, real soon you should take a vote to investigate different law firms to sue these people. Is that possible?
I'm not going to answer that question tonight. I mean, I don't know what is or is not possible. I'm a lawyer. I'm certainly not going to endorse filing frivolous litigation if there's not,
It's not frivolous.
Well,
believe me.
are you a lawyer?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so
Proud of
with all due respect, sir, until we talk to our attorneys and explore our options, I'm not committing to any course of action tonight. So
No,
I
but I'm
appreciate
asking you
it.
to
I understand you
consider
want to throw lawsuits at them, and other people have thrown out the idea of resolutions and ordinances, and we are going to explore all of the options available to Middletown
Well,
Township.
let's put it this way. We're not powerless. We do have power.
I'm not suggesting we don't.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one follow-up, and I would ask that this matter be brought up again at next month's Board of Supervisors meeting, that it be, if there are individuals who are unaware and would like to be able and would like to come and speak, that you reopen public comment. If need be, if somebody mentioned that they hope that Newtown Township has to have it at the high school. This was a tight room tonight, but I think that several residents have asked for the township to make a concerted effort to notify all of the residents within at least, let's say, the smell zone, at least within the appropriate radius of what's being proposed, and table it. Close public comment for this evening, but please reopen it and bring it up and put it on the agenda again next month. Thank you.
Doug Riker, 24 Pine Glen Road in Swan Point. Just to tack onto that, the first thing I did was went on the website. It's abysmal. There's no information. There's no minutes. There's nothing about, anything that's technical about this plan.
You mean the sewer?
Yeah. There's no budget. It just does not look good. And I don't know how anyone can make a decision on anything without any of those details. The $100 million plan. The other thing is, I'd like to see someone they have their engineer here who's going to make probably 5% on $100 million or so, I don't know. Somebody who's neutral come and talk about putting a plant like this in a populated area. I've been in the business of water, wastewater plants for about 30 years. I've not seen this done in the last 20 or 30 years. Taking a plant like this and put it in a highly populated area. It's the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing, including a Middletown, including a Yardley, everyone's going to regional authorities because nobody can keep up with the standards. This is a complete bucking of the system. So, that's it.
Hi, I'm Mike Weaver, Silver Lake. Like the one gentleman said, I don't think this is a soft approach at this point. I mean, they didn't even come to you. You had to find out on your own, everybody up there. So once you start looking into everything and you see where it's at, if we could all get together and you notify us and see if we need resources or whatever it is that we have to do to fight together, then let's do it. But just let everyone know where it's at with that. So thank you.
All right. Well, I want to thank all the residents who came up to speak and ask questions, provide comments, share concerns. We have some really impressive, intelligent, talented people in this community, and it makes me really proud to be a part of this community, and I thank all of you for your willingness to come here. It's almost 10:30 at night, and you're all still here, and it's noted, it's recognized by the board. I want to thank the authority for coming here. Ms. LaRoe is exactly right. You came here in the face of what was certain to be adversity, and you didn't shy away from the criticism. You took questions, you answered questions, and I commend you for that. I hope you'll keep the dialogue open with Middletown and continue to work with us as we have questions and concerns, and we can continue to keep the lines of communication going. But at this point, I'm going to close down this agenda item because we do have, believe it or not, other business, and you're free to stay for all these resolutions we have to go through, but I'll pause for a few moments to let people clear out if they want to. Thanks, everybody. Nick, talk fast, my friend. Supervisor Kane, we are recalling to order this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. And the next agenda item is consideration of enacting ordinance number 24-06 to amend the solid waste and recycling ordinance. Mr. Valla.
Yes, very briefly, the board awarded a contract with Waste Management in August. This ordinance is really just a housekeeping procedural item, just simply to update the definitions of the ordinance. It was duly advertised last week by the Township Solicitor. And again, just as a reminder, this ordinance applies to all trash service provided in the community, not just the Township's contract with Waste Management.
Thank you, Mr. Valla. Is there any questions for Mr. Valla? If not, I can accept a motion.
I move to enact ordinance 24-06, amending Chapter 418 of the Middletown Township Code of Ordinances, updating the solid waste and recycling ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Ashley, did we get the number right? It's 24-06. I know there was changes to the ordinance number. 24-06, just to make sure we said it correctly. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of enacting ordinance number 24-07, updating school zones. Mr. Valla, again.
Yes, again, another housekeeping item. This ordinance was advertised at the last meeting in November, just simply updating the list of schools necessary for police enforcement, and again, duly advertised last week.
Ms. Corporal, I know you had a question.
I just had a quick question about that.
Sure.
I was looking it over, and maybe I'm missing it, but it says that in those areas by the schools that vehicles need to drive at a speed no greater than 15 miles per hour in that vicinity. It doesn't, and I might be missing it, I don't see it stated that it's only during certain hours or posted times.
Sure, and the police department might be better able to speak to this. School zone enforcement is governed by the Pennsylvania Motor Vehicle Code, and I believe in all of Middletown's school zones there are actually posted signalized illuminated signs that flash 15 miles an hour, generally at school, beginning and ending. And I believe that is usually the indication for, I'm looking for confirmation. That's what you guys look for enforcement, yeah. So when those signs are illuminated is when they can be enforced. And I should also add there is a capital improvement plan within the next year that would provide greater ability to use those and especially turn them off when they're not necessary throughout the township.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
No problem.
Any other questions for Mr. Valla? I can accept a motion.
Where is it?
Somebody with a voice.
Sorry.
And it is 07, by the way.
07.
What's that?
2407 is the number. I'll make a motion
Find
to
it.
enact ordinance number
Lost it. There
2407,
we go.
updating the school zones. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of enacting ordinance number 24-08, establishing the stormwater fee. Mr. Valla.
Yes, this was talked about quite lengthily at the last meeting. There was a committee established by the board to investigate the feasibility of maintaining and improving township stormwater infrastructure and also assessing the feasibility of a stormwater fee. The fee structure, once again, is a proposed flat $60 per year per residential property, and then a tiered system based upon impervious surface for commercial multifamily properties. This was duly advertised by the Township Solicitor last week, and this fee is slated to begin in 2025 if approved tonight. And it was discussed at the last meeting, but just as a point of note, staff is advising that if the board wishes to establish a permanent Stormwater Advisory Committee, that be pursued under separate legislation in the new year.
Did we get any feedback once it was advertised from the public?
I've heard almost none.
No, I've gotten nothing. One person tonight.
Yeah, we did have one question tonight, and it was discussed at our budget workshops in October as well. Okay, any other questions or comments regarding the stormwater fee? See, we have a question from the public.
So we're enacting this stormwater management fee because, our impervious surface has necessitated it, and I was just wondering if the board was considering any type of ordinance that might slow down the development of this area to help us develop like our stormwater practices so that we're not flooding the district all the time. And I just, I'd like to see this stormwater management fee come along with some kind of ordinance that controls the development of this area, because it's development's fault that we need this stormwater management fee. We keep approving things and approving things and approving things. So has any consideration been made for passing some type of ordinance to slow down development or halt development in Middletown Township?
It's interesting. So obviously every land development project that comes before us, impervious is one of the issues that we have to look into. And obviously if they satisfy our ordinance in terms of their impervious coverage, that limits our ability to object or to deny a land development proposal on that basis. We had a gentleman, another member of the public, who raised that concern or that question. Is there something that we can do from an ordinance standpoint to give us more ability or more control over land development? Because we obviously acknowledge there's a lot of development happening, and I think we've all at one time or another expressed some level of frustration about the limited ability we have to do anything about it. I don't know, Mr. Esposito, I know you were looking at it at one point, what our options are. We're somewhat constrained by state law as to what we're allowed to do with our ordinance.
There are state laws that, provide what you can and can't do. Now, we could look at an analysis of our entire zoning ordinance, but that would be a large undertaking, which we could certainly do, but it would probably be something that we would have to probably have a planner look at to see what legally we can do to reduce some of the land development options. But that's limited in and of itself, because again, the MPC does control what you can and can't do land development wise. You have to provide every use has to be provided somewhere in the township. And it's just, that's what we're stuck with. There might be some things that we could do, but again, it would take an undertaking of looking at the entire zoning ordinance.
And if a property is zoned a certain way, the owner of that property has the right to develop it according to that zone. And as Jim said, the municipality's planning code controls. You have to have every single use allowed. It has to be thoughtful how you decide to do it. So it's tough.
Yeah.
Actually, I have two questions. One on the impervious. One of the things that I always struggle with is when we get someone in that's revitalizing a property that's already been built, those variances for impervious hold for that new owner, or is that just something that we usually approve because it's already like that?
If it's already existing, it's called an existing non-conforming use.
Yeah.
That we cannot make them take it back down.
Okay.
In most circumstances.
Yeah. And then the second one is, one of the things that I was hoping that you guys could talk through is the fact that we're only charging $500 a month, especially for multifamily properties, so like apartments. We know they're one of the biggest developers that have really high impervious. So I was wondering why we put the 500 for commercial and not the resident.
Well, so the way it's defined in the ordinance, apartment buildings are considered commercial.
Okay.
So it's not going to be the unit, it's going to be the, we say residential, but an apartment building itself is considered commercial. So it would look at the impervious surface for an apartment building.
Did the committee talk through that, and what was their reasoning behind putting that here?
The committee spent a lot of time on that topic. They spent a lot of time on the topic of the residential fee. The goal was to generate enough revenue to be able to make an impact without burdening either businesses or property owners in the township. Our fee is very, very low compared to the average fee out there.
Yeah, and I should add too that the cap is per parcel, and there are a lot of those large properties that come to mind that actually have multiple parcels that would be subject each to its own fee based upon its impervious.
I do have one idea for slowing development is not rezoning the Woods property. We don't have to. There's no law that says we have to. So let's not do that, because that's one way we can stop development. Once we pass that rezoning, we tie our own hands for all those 11 properties to get built. So please consider that as a solution. Thank you.
All right, so unless there's other questions, I can accept a motion.
I move to enact ordinance 24-09, adding chapter 428 to Middletown Township Code of Ordinance, establishing a stormwater impact fee.
And I'll just amend that because we changed the numbering, so it's actually 08.
Sorry, 24-08.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions at this time? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 4-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of approving the 2025 budget and budget resolution number 24-26R.
I'm doing that one. I
Cool,
gave
all right.
myself one item on
Change it
this
up.
agenda. Budget was presented in November after quite a lengthy process. Starting back in August, it's been advertised. It's been available for public inspection as required by the second-class township code since then, so it is ready for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Teoli-Cools regarding the budget?
One of the things that, in my review, we're still operating at a almost $3 million deficit for the general fund, correct?
We are 2.8
Yeah,
million.
and this is the second or the third year in a row that we're at a deficit?
We have budgeted a deficit for a number of years. 2024 is the first year we operated at a deficit.
Okay, yeah. One of the things that concerns me is just, we're at a point where next year, we're not going to have anything left, because, and it's not going to be a good budget season. So I just want to make sure that we are all aware that the time's come to make some serious discussion and decisions.
And we've been talking about that, right? We've been talking about it year to year. 100% correct.
Other questions or comments?
I feel like this year's budget, it's like very bare bones. There's not a lot of extra in there. I feel like everybody worked really hard to just look at what was really necessary.
I think one of the slides that we show year to year is in our general fund. We are locked in with staff costs, benefit costs, pension costs. It's like, I think 88%. There's not a lot of room for movement. And the other funds are, doing okay. But we in our general fund, we need revenue. Definitely need revenue in our general fund. The stormwater fee is going to really help the capital fund and have a designated funding source. Also something we've been talking about for 10 years. So it's a good thing to have a dedicated funding source for those projects. But the general fund, fire protection fund are things that you're going to have to we're going to have to take a hard look at this time next year.
Yeah, I think, every year as we go through the budget process, we're weighing and balancing a number of different factors. I think the thought this year was that looking forward to 2025, we're going to have to be really conservative with respect to spending. I want to commend township staff, all of our directors in their willingness to really tighten their belts and focus on what we really believed were critical level projects, and instead of coming to us with wish lists of things that they want to do. We felt like we did raise real estate taxes last year in order to help fund the volunteer fire companies. This year, we just voted to implement a stormwater fee. And so we're trying to also be mindful of impact on the residents in what are, difficult times for a lot of people. And so your point's taken, Ms. Kane and Ms. Teoli-Cools. Certainly this is, it's been a different process this year. It's not going to be easy going forward, and we're just going to have to probably make some difficult decisions ahead. But I think I'm proud of the budget document that we have to present this year, and I appreciate all the hard work that was put into creating it. And it's a process. It takes a lot of cooperation and compromise from a lot of people, and everybody certainly did that this year. So thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay, then I'm going to make a motion to approve the 2025 budget and budget resolution number 24-26R. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Passes 3-1. And that brings us to other business. I'll start with, sorry, Dominic, I forgot your last name.
Kandari.
Dari.
Nothing other than just want to wish everyone a happy holidays and happy new year. Looking forward to a successful 2025. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Valla.
I just wanted to commend our police department. They hosted last week the Shop of the Cop event. They shopped for over 350 local families in need, and really just a great job by all, especially Officer Missy Ropes. Did a great job, and happy holidays.
Mr. Esposito.
Thank you. I did want to wish everyone happy holidays. Also, I wanted to announce that the board did hold 2 executive sessions recently, one on December 9th and one tonight prior to tonight's meeting, both on personnel matters.
Mr. Yoli-Cools.
I would just like to introduce Laura Hucklebridge, our new finance director, attending her first meeting, which was a marathon one. Laura, I'm very thrilled to welcome to the township. She comes to us with 7 years' experience as a finance director at Warminster Authority. She's a CPA. She's got 15 more years of experience in public accounting. She's a Lehigh grad, a Lower Makefield resident. We are so lucky to have landed Laura in this role, so welcome.
Welcome aboard. Glad to have you. Thank you. Ms. Corporal.
Just want to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays to everybody, and Happy New Year.
Ms. Kane.
I just wanted to thank all of the residents and my fellow board members for really working with Newtown to get them out. I know it was important on my agenda to get some more information for our residents, so I want to thank Stephanie and all the residents that came out and really voiced their opinion.
Ms. Hannah.
Good night.
And I'll just say happy holidays to everybody and see you next year. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Dawn, we're adjourned.
Second.